Diablo.
So Maureen's been, because I have had experiences with Diablo in the past. So Maureen's also wanted to play it. So we set her up first on the PlayStation. So of course, she's never logged in on the PS5. Like she'll just play on my account if there's anything. But if we wanted to play together, presumably we have to both be on our own accounts. So she's like, well, okay, do we even have a PSN account? No. Okay, well, let's just create one. So we create one, and we take the whole time to get the account created, and then the queue time's like an hour. So she goes to bring sandwiches to the oldest, who's, I don't know what the hell she's doing, but she's not getting into trouble, so it's fine. And then comes back, and then she tries to log in, and it turns out that her Battle.net account is attached to a different PSN account.
Oh, that's the worst.
So okay, fine. So she figures out what it is, and then we log her out of the new account. We log her in to the one that's actually tied to her account. Okay, now we're gonna wait in the queue again. So she waits. So she puts that on. We have dinner. And then she's been on this call with our college friends, and it came up. Like, it finally got her into the queue, and it's like, okay, link your Battle.net account, which, again, I thought we already did, but whatever. So then she's like, well, now I need you to help me. I'm like, you just follow the instructions. It's asking you to link it like you're linking a Netflix account. Like, you don't need me to do that. But anyway, she was on the call with our friends, and then I was sitting with her, while I figured that she was going to, hook it up after she got off the call with them. It disconnects. Like, as we're sitting there. So she just logged in again just now, and it's like a 2-hour plus queue time.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure it's even worse because people are like getting back from work and wanting to go in, right?
Like they're just getting off work on the West Coast, and yeah. So
Listen, it could
didn't
be
expect
worse. It could be Overwatch 2.
I mean, it could.
Which had nothing because
Overwatch 2, the queue was the game for about 2 days.
This might be. This
is already better than Overwatch 2. People have played. One of us has played the game.
No, I
substantially
got to play for like 3 hours. Yeah, it was great.
Way better.
Well, I mean, not 3 hours, a couple hours.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah. But I mean, I have to get whatever playing I'm going to get in this weekend, because next weekend is PAX. So.
Oh yeah, we had someone wrote in asking if any of the hosts were going, so you can advertise.
Yeah. Wicked.
Yeah, I'll be there on Friday and Sunday.
Yeah. And yeah, I think probably BlizzCon's gonna be the only thing I go to this year.
Yeah. Well, I mean, PAX is like I can drive to it, so.
I mean, so could I, but.
Well, I mean, but I can drive to it and then go sleep in my bed that night.
I think number of minutes is like just a better deal for Steve.
Yeah. It's easy for me to go to PAX. That one's easy to do.
Yes.
So.
All right. Podcast.
Yeah, we could. We have a lot of things to talk about. So.
Yes.
I
planned for this without realizing that I was, because I had Slissa on yesterday on TAC, and she doesn't know anything about standard, so like we briefly touched on it, but it's like, all right, we're just gonna do BGs, and then the outro, I'm like, if you want just the standard talk this week, go to my other show. So we're gonna do that in reverse for BGs, because Slissa is better than all of us combined at BGs. So if you want to know about,
that's accurate, yeah.
It's not close.
I just scheduled a medical procedure that stalled us just enough to have a bunch of neutral cards to talk about. So,
yes,
it's true. It's true. That's I don't know if that's better or worse. It's a lot of cards.
It's you had to wait for Tony. Tony himself is going to be enough of a talk. I think your camera got shifted up, Steve. You look really short. Yes.
Oh, hang on. No, you know what? I put my chair down. That's what it is. It might be.
There's gonna be something where you like.
I think you know what happened is that I was on Zoom today, and Zoom like cuts the way that they cut the camera is really weird, and it was like cutting off the top of my head. And I don't know why that was. So I had to adjust it down so that I didn't look like I was balding. And then, I mean, not that I really cared if, these vendors thought I was balding, but, anyway, I'm vain.
Just
and
tell
old,
them
so,
this is because of you, and then you'll get a cut in the price.
Well, we already paid them, so I don't get a cut of, we don't get a
never
cut of
mind.
anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I feel like Tony's gonna be more of a big deal in Wild.
He's slow. It's
Or Shaman.
Tony is ticketus. We'll talk about it, but he's just ticketus. So like people are gonna be really mad about it when they're playing.
It's Togwaggle.
It's not a battle cry. It's an aura. When he
Oh,
dies,
we'll
you swap
talk-
out.
we'll
No,
talk about it
I
at
know,
length,
I know.
yeah.
But you like draw a bunch of cards as them and then sacrifice it.
In Wild? I took 13 on turn 3 yesterday.
I don't know.
Like
I guess
I was
probably
playing
Togwaggle decks haven't
yeah.
existed for a long time there either.
I was playing Boar Priest in Wild because you have Twilight's Call. And like that's pretty good. And then they were a rogue and they did nothing on turn 1, and then turn 2 they did Ship's Cannon and stuff, and then turn 3 I took 13. I did not win the game. Didn't get there. Frenzied Fellwing. Good card.
Uh-huh. Did they put that back to 3/3 or is it still 3/2?
Yes. Yes, they did.
I think it's fair as a 3/3 in Wild. Yeah.
I wouldn't say fair. I'd say aligned. But
It's of a comparable power level.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
we'll do this conversation again when we're on the air. By the way, we're just gonna run this back.
Yes.
I feel confident it'll happen again.
I don't think we'll have any lack of things to discuss
Mhm.
tonight. So
Yes, I'm gonna start recording. I'm
yeah,
gonna do
that's
that.
a good idea. I think I will do that too.
Okay.
Am I peaking at all? I guess because I felt like when I was listening. Yeah, actually, I am a little bit. I'm gonna turn myself down a little bit.
Yep.
Because like when I was listening back to last week's episode, it sounded like I was peaking a bit.
A little bit.
So yeah,
Be fine.
Mm.
and
can
when we
try
start talking about
and-
Tony, I need to in case I start yelling,
Huh.
then
I
It'll
can
be
try
fine.
and lower that.
it was a roller coaster of emotions today.
There's
That's
only
what
so
I-
much you can do in filtering if he's clipping when on the
Yeah,
file. So
It's
goal.
I mean, I'd rather bring it down and then have you boost it than
Mhm.
bring it up and or leave it up and then have it clip.
It is
right?
impossible that I will ever have to boost you, Wicked.
What are you trying to say?
Well, usually I do match clip loudness on my audio to yours.
Okay.
And
Which is
it evens out.
probably because I'm peaking and I'm clipping all over the place. So yeah. I'm
So-
actually watching the thing and just seeing where it's clipping and kind of backing down a little bit more. So
It's make sure that you look at it while your mouth is like here, because while you're looking at Audacity, you're not up to the mic.
no, I'm looking
Oh,
at
right.
it
Audacity,
retroactively.
I need that.
Okay.
I mean, I'm looking at the waveform that's on the recording,
Cool. Okay. Well,
and I'm
then,
seeing it clipping, so I was turning it down.
cool. Podcast.
I'm not watching I'm not like watching the meter. I'm watching the waveform and seeing where it's like flat at the top.
Podcast.
Yep.
Yeah.
Podcast. 3,
Podcast. What?
3, 2, 1. What is the sound of one hand clapping?
I wasn't recording yet. Okay, recording.
All right. 3, 2, 1. I guess I could do like. Anyways, it doesn't matter. You're not.
Oh,
This is
so
all. This is
useless.
all raw. This is just the raws.
This-
This is
This
podcast
is, it's an
tartar.
emotional support clap anyway. It's fine.
It's fine. Yes. All right. Starting the show in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Shadows hide you. I am listening. Our paths converge.
So good to see you.
Hail to you! Never lose hope.
Here for a chat.
I hear you. It has only begun. Fight on, friend!
Hello and welcome to episode 387 of Coin Concede, a Hearthstone podcast dedicated to making the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. And also the podcast where the hosts remember to tweet that the show is live. I didn't forget, you forgot. It is Friday, March 17th in the evening. Day late, but we're not $1 short. We've got so many extra dollars for if you get $1 for every neutral card revealed that we're going to talk about for an extended period of time today on the show. Hi, I am Ridiculous Hat, live from Gadgets in New York. We're also joined by... From Nomergon, Ohio, we have Edelweiss.
Hello.
And from Northern Massachusetts, we have Wicked Good.
Hi.
And from where you were, listener, we have you. Thank you so much for being here. Reviewers, thank you so much for your reviews. Really help other people find the show. Patrons, thank you so much for your support. Live viewers, what's up? Good to see you. I see you right over there. And audio listeners, thank you for being the foundation that the show was built upon. Life, ladder, how are we all doing? Steve, you had kind of a crappy day yesterday, so why don't you tell us about that?
Well, yeah. That's a way to put it. Yeah, I didn't play much Constructed this week because I spent the last 2 days not taking my ADHD meds because I was prepping for a colonoscopy. So I will say the whole thing was not a big deal, and if you are of a certain vintage where you need to do it, just do it. It's better than getting colon cancer. But yeah,
Doesn't even seem close.
Yeah, it's definitely like it's the actual procedure was nothing. I mean, it was worse that I was just kind of sitting there because I was the last appointment of the day and I was sitting like in the bed watching Beat Bobby Flay for like 2 hours, which I got weirdly invested in Beat Bobby Flay. Like I was actively like rooting against him in pretty much all of the episodes. And I mean, I guess that's kind of the point, but and of course, by the way, I had not even had any liquids for like 6 hours by this point. So I was really hungry and I was torturing myself by watching people making like fancy little pastas and breakfast sandwiches and stuff like that. So but that was like the only channel I could find that like anything landed on. And I didn't know I could actually use my phone in the hospital bed because they just told me to put all my stuff in a bag. So I was just sitting there watching the Food Network, but so I didn't play any Constructed because I was not in a state to. Well, I mean, part of it was that I didn't really want to be playing at the ranks that I'm playing on my phone, and I was on my phone because I was in the bathroom for a lot of the time because before you have a colonoscopy, you have to prep for the colonoscopy, which means that you need to empty everything out. So I'll just leave it at that. But Hat did recommend Octopath Traveler 2 to me, and that was an excellent suggestion because I passed a lot of time with my Switch and did not realize how much time was passing, and it was a very nice distraction from what was happening to me in the meantime. But yeah, I'm back now. I tried to play a little bit of ETC Control Priest today because I saw somebody saying if you're going to run Theatar, you may as well just run ETC and throw Theatar in 2 other cards. So I think I played the same list that I was playing earlier in the week. I just threw Theatar, a second Nether Drake, and like Basileff in the ETC because I figured if it's a Theatar game, then I'll have time to play Theatar. Otherwise, I'll just play the ETC and get the Nether Drake, or I'll have the Basileff if I need it. It doesn't matter because I've been running into like the stupidest stuff on ladder that's just been like, I mean, well, Thief Rogue is Thief Rogue, but also I played into this like 2 Frost 1 Blood Death Knight that just ended up having everything and
except Frostburn Fury.
Well, no, they did because they got it off of Frost Strike. So they did have that. So I ended up just switching to Quest Druid. I only had time to play like 1 game, but I ended up queuing into Potato Cat from the Discord, and Potato Cat was on Mind Warlock, and this basically turned into the battle of who could care less about the board, and turned out that I was able to into Moonlit Guidance into both Anubarak and Astalor on the same turn. Well, I Moonlit Guidance into a Moonlit Guidance, and then the Moonlit Guidances got me out Anubarak and Astalor, and then
this
I was
is a
able
family
to
show, Steven. There are children listening.
I mean, listen, if I had a crappy day on Thursday, I'm gonna make sure other people had a crappy day on ladder. So, but yeah. So that's been. I'll probably end up playing that a little bit more this weekend. I've been mostly just trying to the get the signature the event quest done because I really want the mixed queen Ashara portrait because that
Best
is
one.
easily it's not even close.
So far,
And-
every podcast I've done since this has come out has picked her, including Slissa, who does not play standard. Picked Mixed Queen Ajara because she's that good.
Yeah.
She's cool. She's hot. She's like all of the things depending on what you like. And the other two skins are okay, but objectively, Ajara is the best one.
Yeah, it's not close.
I mean, the DJ vibes. It's
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah, I did play a fair amount of duels because I figured I could do that without risking anything, except that I ran into a Reno Jackson thief rogue mage where
Oh,
they don't
boy.
even need to play jackpot to get the Rune of the Archmage. They just go with Trickster Rune on 4 into Grey Sage Parrot, and that was not okay. And I would like to speak to a manager.
Do we just call that Wand Thief Rogue?
We call it offensive is what we call it. I'm pretty sure. Because, like, I figured that's, like, the one place where Thief Rogue can't hurt me. And very few things tilt me in duels. But that sure was one of them. So, yeah, just be aware of that, I guess. But I played a little bit of duels, and duels is still fun. It was a good way to, kind of clear the quest. And, like, because I had, like, trigger a bunch of death rattles and trigger a bunch of secrets. Like, I'm not playing that on ladder. So I figured, okay, I'll just queue up a hunter. And just throw all the secrets in. There's a few secret hunters on Hearthstone decks for duels, and that worked. It worked fine. Like it had like Tundra Rhino and what's the one that summons a 3/3 for every secret that you have? I forgot.
The Petting Zoo.
Petting Zoo, yeah. So you just like get all your secrets up, and then you Tundra Rhino Petting Zoo and just hit them in the face, and that's how you end the game. So. Or there's like the 4-mana treasure spell that summons a beast for every secret that you've played that game. So you can just do that with Tundra Rhino, and that's usually enough damage to get there, unless you really low roll.
That
That's
sounds
why you
fun.
don't pet the rhinos.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. I can't think of too many petting zoos that have rhinoceroses. Edelweiss, how's your life in ladder?
Been going all right. I'm happy to have my mom back because now that she's no longer on vacation, she can take some of the days with my nephew. So hopefully I will more consistently have 4-day weeks, which gives me time to catch up on things. Maybe I can end up streaming some more. That's the hope anyway. And then Diablo 4 came out today. So after waiting in queue for like an hour and a half while I played Elden Ring, I got to try some of that. I really, really am enjoying this new Diablo. I think it is this great compromise between 2 and 3 that kind of keeps the best parts of both. The vibes are fantastic. They do not pull their punches with that opening act, the prologue, and they brought back skill trees, which is fantastic. From and kind of expanded on it in an even better way. So I have only good things to say about Diablo 4 so far.
Yeah.
You really get into the lore of the world that it's based in as well, kind of going back to the original history of like how humans came to exist in that I don't know, the Diablo universe, whatever we want to call it.
Sanctuary.
Yeah, with Sanctuary. Yeah.
Hopefully we can get on at the same time this weekend.
Hopefully.
That would be nice. Hopefully, fingers crossed. But we're trying to. I got into the PlayStation so Maureen and I can co-op. So
I'm of course
hopefully-
playing a rogue because it's the class with a bow, but I held back and I'm not starting with the bow things. They have this great system where it costs nothing to respec within like the first 15 levels if you want to just like mess around and try different things. And you can fight with a bow as a rogue and or 2 knives or short swords. So I've been trying the dual wielding daggers, and it's been super fun.
So you're a stabby rogue.
Exactly, a stabby, throwy rogue. Yeah.
Yeah. I might. It's gonna depend on what Maureen picks this time around. We have to actually get into a queue first, because if she takes the rogue, then I'll take the barbarian. Otherwise, I normally play as a sorcerer. I'm gonna play as a sorcerer when very likely when the full game comes out. So I figure I want to try something else. So if she wants to be a sorcerer or a barbarian, I'll take the rogue. Otherwise, I'm gonna take barbarian. But
Yeah.
I figure
But-
it doesn't make sense for us to both be the same class if we're gonna be co-oping.
My brother always does necromancer. So when we were kids in Diablo 2, he would play necro, I would play paladin. It was good synergy.
Yeah, that's her main is usually necro because she likes her skeleton buddies.
But in terms of Hearthstone, I've just been playing Battlegrounds because due to I guess not nepotism, but kind friends, I have the battle pass for Battlegrounds, even though I don't usually do a ton of Battlegrounds, but I'm not loving Standard at the moment, so I am just playing a bunch of BGs, trying to max out the rewards track before it flips over for the new expansion. And it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy buddies. I know not everyone does, but it's helpful for me having that kind of guidance in terms of like, all right, how do I want to play this? And I feel like, particularly with the changes they made to the system, feels a lot smoother. You know, you can plan things out, and ETC band manager in BGs is super cool. It's like the most fun for me, where you're just like picking different buddies and trying to build a comp out of buddies. I still haven't gotten the Rag one, which is my favorite, the doubling end of turn effects. That's, I think, by far my favorite buddy. So hopefully I'll get that eventually. But I think another thing is we didn't have this many tribes the last time we had buddies. And
Yep, we didn't have Naga
that's
or
distinctly
Undead.
different. Yeah.
Yep, we didn't have dual tribe minions. And
Mhm.
we'll talk about it, but they changed some pretty foundational stuff in BGs.
Mhm.
A lot of it ended up working out with how they ended up adjusting in two different directions at the same time, but there's a lot going on. I will give the caveat now. There is a lot of stuff that happened last week. And we are primarily a standard podcast. I recorded a wonderful episode with Slissa on the Angry Chicken yesterday, and she is a very good BG's player. If you added all three of our MMRs together, they would be less than hers by a good bit. So,
Yeah.
the BG's content, I'm going to direct people there. We're, of course, going to go over the patch notes and all that, but this is not going to be BG strategy or even get all that specific here. There's just simply too much to cover. We have a lot of card reveals. Some of them may cause fights, so we want to make sure we leave time for that because that's content. So, we're not going to dive as deep into BGs here, but the Angry Chicken episode we did yesterday, Slissa smart and fun, and go listen to that if you want all the specifics there. But yeah, as for me, I think this standard format is great, but we are going to lose it pretty soon, and also it's still like new expansion hype time, but there are a lot of viable decks right now. A lot. Quite a few choices. The format is definitely like, I'm not even sure it's on the faster side, but it's a fully powered format with a bunch of cards, and so if you want to kill people before turn 9, you can probably do that. If you want to wait till after that, you probably can't reliably do so. And late game strategies, you're gonna die to Naval Mines or Brastalor or something. But if you want to play the first 9 turns of the game, there are a lot of different ways to do that, and I like that. I am currently rank 80 on the NA leaderboard, so we'll see if I get a top 100 finish again. Had some fun with Shadow Priest. Had some fun with Miracle Rogue. Had some fun with Enrage Warrior. World 8's Enrage Warrior. Ran into him inside top 100. Very good. Very good deck. I queued into Theo. He conceded on turn 4. I went back and watched his VOD, and he said, well, we just need him to not draw Anima Extractor into Imbued Axe, and I did that. And then someone in the chat was like, next Vicious Syndicate report. Enrage Warrior has a great matchup into Blood DK, which is what he was playing. We're not going to write that, but it was fun, and then he died. So, yeah, I'm enjoying Standard right now, but there are a lot of games out there, and ladder anxiety is a real thing, and BG's is cool. Been playing some of that. It's fun. It's BG's makes time evaporate, so I have to be really careful with it because I just want to see how the thing's gonna work. But then I play 2 BGs and it's an hour later, and I'm like, oh, well, that just kind of happened. It's really strange when I'm moving back and forth between like Marvel Snap to BGs. That range of time per card is really expansive. Really, really expansive. Because I'll play like a few Snap games and I'll be like, oh, it's been 9 minutes. And then I'll play 2 BGs and I'm like, oh, it's been an hour. And it's just hard to reconcile how much time things take.
You just need to play more Control Priest, then everything will even out.
Nope. Absolutely not. The goal is not to make more things like the long thing. That's not the dream here. But either way, dig Standard. BGs is fun. Yeah, I am not playing Diablo. I got no personal problem with it. It's too much clicking.
It's not your thing.
Yeah, you're not a Diablo person anyway. It's fine.
I mean, like, I could be, but I'm not. Like, I am certain that if I
have your
played
limit.
that game,
Yeah.
if I played that game, I'm sure I'd have a good time. Like, but I'm not going to right now, and I don't feel need to chase a new addiction because I got plenty already.
Yeah,
So-
Diablo 2 was the first Blizzard game that I played. I
Great game.
watched my brother and his friends play Warcraft 2, so have some of the quotes memorized from that. But Diablo 2 was the first one I played, probably too young. I think I was somewhere in the 10 to 12 range, so I would get scared of all the shadows at night. But it just has such memories for me as that entry point. Warcraft 3 then soon followed, but it's really good to come back to Sanctuary now, because 3 I played with friends and I finished the plot, and then I just kind of didn't touch it very much anymore.
Yeah. I mean, Diablo 1 was my first Blizzard game. I remember driving to an Egghead Software.
Whew.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm old enough to have just had a colonoscopy. So yes,
Yep.
this is the vintage that we're talking about. But I was my senior year of high school, and I got it when it had first come out. I had to call up the Egghead Software and go drive over there and get it. And that was my first. I've been aware of Warcraft, but I was trash at real-time strategy. It took me years to be able to figure it out after that. But Diablo, I just fell in love with. That was the first. My parents had just gotten me the computer I was going to take to college for my 18th birthday, and that was the first game that I put on it that was actually pushing it a little bit, because at that time that was pushing a 386 Pentium processor. And yeah, I just played the living hell out of that the second half of my senior year, and then Maureen and I both played Diablo 2 together in college, a lot. So that's kind of that was one of our games. We played a lot of we kind of but we spent a lot of time with the Gauntlet Legends arcade game.
Yo,
student center.
that was a multiplayer experience. That was after the side-scrolling beat 'em up had gone out of style a little bit, but that was you could get some time in on the Gauntlet Legends.
Well,
cabinet.
we finished it because it would keep your character between sessions, right? So you could put in put in your initials or whatever. It would keep your character. You could pick up where you left off. So we actually finished the game, and then it tells you how much money you put into it at the end of it, which was not something I wanted to see.
No, that's cruel. That's not a good marketing tactic.
Yeah.
Anyways, we should talk about the news instead of doing a Diablo podcast, even though I'm sure that you two would do an excellent Diablo podcast.
I'm sure we'll have a bonus episode at some point. So
Have fun with that. But we're here to talk about Festival of Legends. Let's go.
Gadgets and Gazette always gets the scoop.
Expansion! It's a new expansion. Festival of Legends. This is, so, the past year, really the past 2 years, but the past year in particular, very WoW lore heavy, narrative driven. This past year was 3 expansions set in various spots in WoW. It's Voyage was a little bit less directly connected. Nathria and Lich King were a lot more connected. The previous year was all about the narrative arc of the mercenaries within the context of the World of Warcraft universe. Barrens, Stormwind, Alterac Valley. We're just gonna hang out and jam to some tunes now in Hearthstone. Festival of Legends is a music festival themed expansion. There is no major narrative arc. It is not related to any particular spot in the WoW universe. Just vibes. That's it. And I, for one, am really here for it. It's very fun. And ETC is gathering the greatest musicians from all over Azeroth to put on the biggest music festival in history. Each class gets a different genre. Of note, Demon Hunter getting emo. Whoever decided that, good call. Thank you for doing that. There are some classifications here that are a little bit funky.
I feel like we need to talk about these.
Okay, so let me run through them real quick for our audio listeners. Death Knight is metal, obviously correct. Druid is hippie, I see that. Demon Hunter is emo, obviously correct. Hunter is folk, I'm sure we'll come back to that. Mage is electronic. Paladin is disco. No, not Warlock, Paladin. Priest is pop. Rogue is hip-hop. Warlock is classical. Shaman is jazz. And Warrior is rock. I can see at least a few of these being accurate, but tell me about your contentions, Edel, because you have some premeditated contention.
Okay. So I'm totally down for Death Knight as metal, Rogue as hip-hop. I think those work great. Demon Hunter as emo. I had a little bit of like, wait, is that really a genre of music? Okay, whatever. Yeah. Druid as hippie, I'm just like, that is definitely not a genre of music. I know what they're saying, but for me, that's just folk. Which then means Hunter needs to be something else. Maybe trap, right? I think of something aggressive for Hunter.
Or country.
What, country is country aggressive?
For Hunter? I mean, but Hunter's all out in like the,
Here's what I think.
I
think they had some tiptoeing around certain backlash they didn't want to deal with for picking certain genres. So they didn't want to like give Hunter rap or trap or something like that. They didn't want to give Shaman reggae.
Thank you. Thank you for not doing that. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So
it's I think Priest should be ska, and then you can give pop to Hunter.
I don't think Priest works as ska.
I think as a Priest main, I think that pop works very well because it is the genre that everybody loves to hate. And so I think that it makes a lot of sense for Priest to be the annoying pop star. It absolutely makes a ton of sense.
My guess is they felt that like choral was too on the nose, right? To do something chorus like.
Yeah. I was afraid that was what it was going to be. I was going to be sad. Like it was going to be like choir music and like
right.
no. Please
Yeah.
Yeah.
Paladin, I kind of get how on Blizzlet they were saying just swap Paladin and Warlock.
Yeah.
I do get the classical for Warlock. I feel that. I don't know, something about the whole like deal with the devil kind of vibe.
Yeah, it's Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah. But Paladin with the whole purity thing, I don't know, disco just doesn't feel like it.
Yeah, Paladin does seem like a classical class though. It just seems like they would be like the, too good for this modern kid stuff, and that they just be, sitting there with the intellectual music,
You all project a lot onto musical genres.
Yeah.
I think how they arrived at disco was Crystal Smith Kangor as the lead, right? And they went from there. Because I kind of get disco for Kangor specifically, but not for like Paladin as a class.
I will tell you, as a Rogue main, I'm happy with hip hop for Rogue, because
yeah, totally. No, they nailed it.
Because this means the original gangster Waggle, also known as TOG Waggle. Blizzard put it in the game. I gave you the material. I will not ask for royalties. Put TOG Waggle in the game.
Man.
Oh my god.
I am begging.
Yeah, Warrior and Rock was kind of a gimme. Like, that one's easy. Mage Electronic, I'm sort of fine. I always hate putting Electronic so broadly because there's such depth within Electronic. I know all of these had to be, like, kind of one word, hip-hop the exception, but because they weren't going to do, like, super subgenre type things.
No, they could have called it EDM, right? Like...
Right, EDM, you could say trance,
I mean, once
which
you
is,
start getting
whole
into
certain thing.
subgenres of electronica, then it starts getting kind of
House.
you start losing people, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think EDM is something that everybody would know, and electronic
Right,
is just
right.
fine, right? But like, or I guess you could call it techno if you wanted to. But once you start getting into like
People hate
subgenres
when
of,
you call it techno, though.
yeah, I mean, once
They
you
would
start getting,
receive
yeah.
emails.
Oh yeah. But I mean, once you start getting into subgenres of electronic,
Hmm.
like I don't know the difference, and like dubstep and
Hmm.
trance and whatever, and
Wait, dubstep would have worked for Hunter.
Mm, yeah,
If we want to talk like aggressive beats.
yeah, I suppose.
So I'm gonna scroll past this now. I'm gonna keep
We
going.
have a lot of cards to talk about, and we're gonna get lost on this for a while if we're not careful.
I think that ship might have sailed already. But it's
Look,
okay.
We spent less time than Blizzard on it.
I mean, I think that this,
It's true.
like, honestly, like, I am like so much more into this theme than I have been of anything since probably like Dark Moon Fair, right? Because like as somebody who doesn't play WoW, who like has to like learn about all of the lore in real time and feel like I'm constantly behind and like I'm not, I'm not getting the jokes. Like I know music, right? Like I'm the kind of nerd who like set up smart playlists for every song in my iTunes library like 20 years ago, right? So like I get a lot of these, references, and I don't need to have played like 100 hours of WoW in order to get it. And I really like appreciate that. And I like, seeing some of the characters that we already know and seeing some new characters and learning about them at the same time as everybody else. Like this is what I've missed in a theme for a long while, and I'm really glad we're getting back to this. I understand we need to do the Warcraft things to for engagement and returning players and whatever. I mean, certainly with bringing Death Knight into the game, you need to do that for the last set, but I'm really glad that we're finally getting back to like the Boomsday type theming. Not the Boomsday set, whatever, but like Boomsday as a theme was like one of my favorites because it was just pure Hearthstone, right?
Yeah, making stuff up. It's So the past 2 years seem to correlate pretty directly with a push to tie into WoW, especially WoW Classic. And this is uninformed, external, probably wrong correlation. But Ben Lee left the team about a year ago. And they designed these things a year in advance. And I don't know if he was given particular guidance from above to say, let's do tie-in sets. But this would have been the first one where Ixar was officially the game director. And also it's the first one we've had in a while where it is not directly tied into WoW. Probably just a coincidence. But it's... I don't know. Maybe it's not. Either way,
Or maybe they
I
just
think
decided
it
it was
sounds
time.
Yeah. So...
Definitely was time. I mean, this is a real palate cleanser theme-wise. We've had so much WoW, and as much as I like WoW and getting into the lore, even though I never played it, I just like the world. There's just something unique about Hearthstone-only theming,
Yeah. It's... I'm here for it. I'm all about it.
Yeah.
We know the set's coming April. We don't have an exact date. It's not listed in the blog. I will note that April 10th is the last day to buy the pre-order, and they said the pre-order will not continue into when the set launches this time, which they only did that one time last expansion, which is a shame, but that means the day the pre-order ends is the day before the post-order begins, which means we should anticipate the set being live on April 11th. They didn't put it in the blog, but that probably just means in case something technological happens, they have some wiggle room. So, 145 new cards. Reveal schedule is going right now. They are doing neutrals first, which I love, because that normally means we can build decks as soon as we see packages of cards. However, for rotation, we are missing one thing called the core set, which is core to building decks. They are delaying it because they are delaying they usually release core stuff when they announce the new year. I'm hoping that they give us a couple of weeks with the core set along with all the cards in the expansion. That'd be really nice. Don't know the timing yet. I've been reassured that the core set will be revealed along with everything else with plenty of time to spare, but we don't have any information on that yet.
Yeah. And last year it was like as on the day of like the last dump, right? Like we
I
didn't
think
find
so.
out, like the core set was like a secret, and then like we found out about that like along with the big dump of the rest of the cards at the end of the reveal season. So it could be going right up until the end. I hope not, because it's really hard to evaluate these things not knowing what's going to be in and out and just like making assumptions about core. But I think they know that too, so we'll see.
I feel really confident that feedback has made its way to them multiple times a day, every day for a while. Like, this is not something that they haven't been asked. I can say that I personally have asked them and have seen other people ask them. I feel pretty confident there's a plan here. So, okay, we do have a new keyword, finale. If playing a card spends all of your mana remaining, then this does something extra. So it checks if you have 0 mana remaining when the card is played. Doesn't mean it has to be the last thing you play that turn, especially if you're a rogue. But it does mean that you have to use all your mana to play it. So, for example, Ghost Rider, 5 mana, 4/4 undead, Battlecry, discover a spell, Finale, discover another. Cool. Okay. Fun mechanic. Nice. Rewards good sequencing, good technical play. Punishes tapping last. Love it. There are legendary musicians and songs, so each class is getting a legendary minion that is the star musician, and a legendary spell representing the musician's most popular song. We'll talk about specific cards here, but there is a fun Rainbow DK card that Edelweiss is just absolutely ear to ear over. Yes, Rainbow DK is real.
I'm so excited, and this is the perfect card for it too.
It's fun. We'll talk. We're not in cards yet. That's in explanations. Hold it back. Hold it back. So,
Yep.
We do have a new class keyword for Priest, Overheal. It is important to call this out because Priest is getting a new evergreen addition to the class identity this year, starting in the Festival of Legends and core set. This is a thing Priest does now. It is a rework to their core class identity. Minions with Overheal trigger a special effect when they are healed above their max. Here, the Priest Legendary Musician. Heartbreaker Hedonist, we will give this as an example. It's a 4 mana, 4/8 legendary. As a battlecry, it deals 4 damage to itself. So it's a 4/4. And then if you overheal it, it deals 5 damage to a random enemy. Overhealing does work if the minion is at full health. It's any time that the amount of healing exceeds the amount of damage the minion has on it. So,
And you can do it repeatedly. You can do it
Correct.
more than once. So it doesn't get used up like a spell burst or whatever. You can do it like if you have a bunch of healing spells and you want to throw them all on Hedonist, you can turn them into a machine gun if you want to. I love this actually because one of the problems with Priest is that like you just end up in a lot of situations where your hero power literally does nothing. And this is something where you can at least use your hero power to trigger an effect, right? So in that, I mean, I've been feeling this a lot when I've been playing Control Priest. I'm at 35 health. All my minions are healing, and it's like, well, I've got 2 mana, but I can't do anything with my hero power. So this will at least like, it's almost like a little Inspire effect in that sense that you can trigger it that way. But you can also do it multiple times if you have healing spells that you're not going to use. You don't really need the healing. You can use them for other things instead of just healing your face. Or healing a minion, which is really good to give a lot of flexibility, both to the hero power and to cards like Gift of the Naru, which is going to be rotating, but like that would be like a really great card to have in a deck with a lot of overheal effects because you'd be able to trigger everything on the board with just the one card. So, I mean, it's possible we might get Circle of Healing back in the core set because of that, and then that would become a much more powerful card even without Akanai Soul Priest, which is like the only time that it was ever played before that. Or, I mean, I guess, or if unless you were triggering like a lot of card draw with Northshire Cleric. Those were like the only 2 use cases that you'd really see Circle of Healing played. But in like a deck with a bunch of overheal effects, Circle of Healing, assuming, I don't know anything, but assuming it made its way into a core set, and you could see that being a logical thing to bring back, right, suddenly gets a lot more powerful in that kind of an environment.
I could easily see Northshire being replaced with Southshire Cleric. 1 mana, 1/3. Whenever you overheal a minion, draw a card. The voice line says, "Is no one injured?" Like it works out really well. But think about the really strange board states you would get to whenever a priest played a turn 1 Northshire. You were kind of discouraged from playing minions into that. You just kind of had to pass, and you didn't want to hit it. You didn't want to like soften it up because they would just heal and draw a card. As opposed to an overheal-based minion, you were actually incentivized to interact with the minions because you want it to be lower health. You want it to not get overhealed, which I think is much healthier for the gameplay. And also, like you said, it obsoletes Priest Former best turn 2 play of threaten and heal opponent. You can no longer really do that because you actually have to do something with your hero power. But it does mean Priest gets to do something relevant early game and use that hero power in a proactive way. I think that's really nice. And we were talking as well offline about, is there a chance that Benedictus actually bucks the trend and makes its way into core, because Shadow Priest has been really, really successful in terms of giving Priest another identity that actually makes sense and is different at the same time. And don't bring back Void Touch Attendant, but it's kind of hard to do the Shadow thing without the hero power, and Shadow Form ain't it. Is super not it. So I wonder if there's a chance of Benedictus making sense to be something that you could bring along, because the hero power has not been enough for Shadow Priest to be relevant for the entire time Shadow Priest has been in Standard outside of Stormwind and now. It's just, it gives you an option.
When before Mindrender or Lucia got nerfed, basically.
It was okay-ish after, like, I played it, but no one else was playing it. But yeah, it was Elucia and now. And otherwise, the hero power has not been enough. Void Touch Attendant has not been enough. Don't bring that card back; it's too good. And so just giving people the option to turn purple, I don't think is hurting anybody.
Yeah, I mean, they also printed a lot. There's a fair amount of like Shadow Priest support that they printed like the last couple sets. So a lot of those cards are going to be kind of hard to justify. You know, if there's not some sort of a Shadow Priest to be able to do that. Like, they definitely went hard on printing Shadow Priest support, even in the past year.
Yeah. I will note, in the preview videos, we did not see anyone in Shadow form. They were all base heroes, so just be aware of that. We were looking for hints, but no one was in Shadow form. They didn't put that in there. Doesn't mean it's not happening. Just means we didn't see it. That's what that means. Okay. So we know that there's going to be a cycle of instrument weapons. Every class gets a weapon that does something musical. There are flip-flop cards, harmonic and dissonant. Apparently it used to be major and minor, but minor sounded boring and bad, so they changed the name. But there are two different forms of the same card. The example here that I'll give, it's different from the old werewolf cards where they were just flipping attack and health and also were bad. These are, I don't know if they're going to be good, but I do know that they're at least more interesting. There's a 1 Blood Rune DK card, Harmonic Metals, 3 mana spell. The harmonic side, the base side, give 4 random minions in your hand +2/+2, whereas the dissonant side gives 2 minions +4/+4. So it's the same amount of stats, just a question of wider or taller. I think that's interesting. Usually the way these work out is that the half you don't want is kind of dead or suboptimal, and so they end up being mediocre cards half the time and don't see play. This effect, I could see both options being relevant, and you just play this on curve no matter what it is, and then your games are a little different each time.
Yeah, well, it could be like if you actually have enough minions, right, then you want to spread it out. If it's later in the game and the only thing you have is a Gnome Muncher and something else, then you want that +4/+4.
Tonberry in chat is mentioning Malignant Horror, which would be large. That would be big and large. I now want that, and I didn't know that I'd wanted that before, but thank you, Tonberry.
It's so adorable to see you and Tonberry like bonding over Shadow Priest things. It's the best. It's the most wholesome thing, really.
Listen, you take a priest, and all you do is you add in 1 drops and damage, and I'm here for that. That's all I need in life. 1 drops, damage. It's fine. So, there are also soloists. These are minions that have special effects when you control no other minions. They're a cycle as well. I believe every class has one. And we got the new neutral legendary, and it is a doozy. Not in terms of power level, but in terms of creative expression and wackiness. And new game mechanics that people don't quite understand yet. So, ETC Band Manager. This is the freebie legendary. If you log in right now, you get it now. There is a note, by the way, on here. It says after patch 26.6, ETC Band Manager will be granted upon opening your first Festival of Legends pack instead of logging in. People have misunderstood this. 26.6 is in 4 months from now. This is always how it's worked. That when a freebie legendary rotates, because it's from the previous set, because they put out a new set, the way you get these cards, like if you want to get a Blade Master Okani now, you open one Voyage pack and you get it. In addition to whatever's in the pack, it's granted as soon as you enter the collection, as soon as you enter the pack opening screen. This is the first time they called it out, and so there were a few people in Discord that are like, "Does that take away the legendary from the pack? Why can't I just get this for free?" Just want to make sure everyone's clear. This is when the next expansion comes out, is when that text comes up. Otherwise, it's just free right now.
Yeah,
It's like when you get an achievement that gives you a card, right?
Correct.
It's the same thing.
It's the banner pop up.
Yeah, it's just a triggered event. So if you just aren't playing with that set, or you've taken a break for a while, they can kind of store that action within the pack opening, rather than just having infinite pop-ups that happen when you log in.
Yes. Anyways, let's explain this card, because it's going to take a minute. ETC is a 4-mana 4/4 neutral legendary. And when you're building your deck, you assemble a band of 3 cards. And when you play them as a battle cry, you discover one of those. Okay. This is a Zephrys or a Pandaren Import or whatever, a discover card that you choose the options before the game. That's what it is. So, to visualize how this works, when you're building your deck, it's like you're building a 33-card deck. If you were a Renathal person, a 43-card deck, good for you. Enjoy your cards.
Hi.
It has to follow the rules that your deck would follow if you were building 33 normal cards. You can't go outside rune requirements, you can't have extra legendaries, you can't have third copies of cards, because you're building a 33-card deck. But when you go in the game, you're playing a 30-card deck, because those 3 cards aren't in your deck. They're in the band. So, if you're playing Shadow Priest, and you want to put 3 holy spells in ETC, that's fine, because when you start the game, there are no holy spells in your deck. Benedictus triggers. If you want to go into Wild, you want to play Even Warlock, and you want to throw Lothab in your band, when you start the game, Lothab not in your deck, triggers. So, for construction legality, pretend you're building a 33-card normal deck. For start of game effects, pretend you just have a 30-card deck, and those 3 cards aren't in it, because that's what's happening. So yeah.
Well, notably, you couldn't do this with the Demon Hunter card, right? You can't put a start of turn effect in the band and expect to get it.
Right, it's not going to trigger if it's in the band. Yeah.
It's not legal to put in the band.
Is it banned from the band?
It's banned from the band. But also, what you would do, by the way, is you would put ETC as one of your 3 minions in your spell deck, and then you can wish for more wishes, right? You bound soul for ETC if you want to.
It's just a Russian doll situation.
It's a lot of work for an Astalor. So, yeah, you don't need it that bad.
And I believe if you, I haven't seen this myself, but if you Shadow Step it or brand it or whatever, I believe you only get to choose from whatever you hadn't chosen already.
Yeah, it's just like the Soul Scythe. It's you put 3 things in the bag. When you take it out of the bag, it's not in the bag anymore. You can't duplicates. It's your band members are irreplaceable. They are unique. Part of the band. So
yeah, it's basically adding sideboards to Hearthstone.
For anyone that played Eternal, this is the market mechanic. That's what you're doing here.
I said that as soon as I saw it. I'm like, oh, they figured out how to put the market into Hearthstone, which thankfully not the way that Eternal did, because it was kind of broke. We're not
too many
get into
cards
other
that
card
access the
games.
market.
Yeah, there were way too many cards that got to the market, and it was not a good thing. But yeah, this is a much healthier market. It's like a whole.
So, okay, time to Magic Talk, 47 minutes. So some people are going to call this a wish board. If you see that term in Magic many years ago, 2001-ish, there's a set called Judgment where they printed a cycle of cards called Wishes. When you played a wish, you got a card out of your sideboard and brought it into the main game. Because normally you have a 15-card sideboard, best 2 out of 3. You would bring those cards into the main deck and swap out cards, make your deck different between games. And Wishes allowed you to go get those cards in Game 1, whatever you wanted. You just built like a 15 cardboard of one of, so you could get it whenever you wanted during the game. So that was called a wish board, not a sideboard, because you would wish for the card instead of actually changing your deck. Yeah, I marked it all down, Nettle. Don't worry, you can cut this out. We'll leave it for the raw. Yeah. So, in addition, they kind of redid everything about signature cards, which I think is pretty rad. So the card.
Push back on that a little bit. I think part of this was not a rework. It was just the next signature. These were always going to be colored.
The art style is like having not having the card text on the card. I think is definitely a rework that was from feedback that they were getting.
They definitely took feedback, but them being colorful was always going to happen.
Oh yeah, no, the art style was always going to be different. And I think they always intended for these to be not look like rocks from Marvel Snap in every set, but definitely like the first set of signatures had all the card text on it that was obscuring most of the art. But what they've done now is that it's just the card name on the bottom. Presumably you hover over it and it has the card text, I would hope. Yeah. Especially if you're playing against a card that you don't normally see. I would hope that there's a way to get at the card text. But these look, I mean, it's just not having all the card text covering up the bottom half of the art just makes them pop so much more. And obviously the fact that they're colorful helps too.
Yeah, it's the Slissa described these when looking at them as like hanging up a poster of your favorite band, and I love that because that's really what it is.
Yeah.
So thin frames, no text. They're like the Magic textless cards. You actually have to hover over these to get a tooltip for what the cards do. They're really cool. In addition, there are some system level changes. You can dust signatures now for the golden cost. You cannot craft them, but you can dust them, including the March of the Lich King cards. You can dust those too. The packs, the golden packs, are no longer going to be signature packs for Festival of Legends. They're going back to their original price, and they no longer have that massively boosted signature chance.
Oh.
Yeah. Because remember, they got more expensive, but also you would get signatures like crazy out of them. Those got pulled back pretty hard. So that's not a thing anymore. I'm guessing they couldn't give you a bunch of signatures while also making them dustable because you just end up with a ton of dust.
Oh, sure.
That's my guess. Anyways, I don't know. But basically, every system around signatures got pulled back to they're just high rolls that you get out of packs, and if you don't want them, you don't have to keep them. That's pretty much it. They look better. Go ahead.
Some of them are just going to be on the rewards track. So everyone's going to have, certain ones. I'm guessing these ones, Hipster and Void Virtuoso, that are in the notes are going to be on the rewards track.
Yeah, the non-legendary ones are pretty easy to put on the rewards track anyway.
They're exclusively rewards track cards. They're uncraftable, cosmetic only. Usually on the there are usually a couple of them on the free and then a couple on the paid. But yeah, if you see a non-legendary signature, it is always uncraftable, undustable. And you don't get to dust the uncraftables on the rewards track because just like every other uncraftable card they've ever given you in Hearthstone, they are uncraftable and undustable. So that doesn't change here. When I say you can dust your signature cards, it doesn't mean that you can dust undustable cards. They're still undustable. So don't try and go and dust your Death Whisper. That's yours. You get to keep that one. All right. So pre-order is out. There is 80 and 60. The 80 does not have signature legendaries anymore. It has golden legendaries. It has the Hedonist Priest hero skin and card back. You only get the card back in the 60. Just a normal pre-order. Nothing too special here. All right. In addition, we also got a large patch, 25.6. shall we? Gosh. We're not going card by card, right? We're not. There's no way.
No.
Okay. Good. So, talked about the pre-order there, talked about ECC Band Manager. Oh yeah, they butchered Test Subject. Test Subject got adjusted because of the broken combo. It is now 1 mana O2 Death Rattle. Shuffle any spells you cast on this minion into your deck, which is worse.
Rip APM Priest.
Gives your
Yeah.
charge minions +1 attack, Cat. That's what it does.
Yeah.
Basically, right. It gives your charge spells +1 attack. It is now officially useless. So feel free to dust this one if you got him, because you're not going to be seeing him anytime soon. Let's see. So there is the Headliners Tour. I think we alluded to this. I can't remember if that was that in the pre-show.
Yeah,
I
we
don't
talked
remember.
about it a little.
We mentioned the
We
Azara.
talked about it a little bit. Yeah.
Event track. Pick one of the three that you like. There's Mixed Queen Ajara, Flower Child Lunara, or Rocker Rokara. Whichever one you don't pick now, whichever ones, you can buy them. When 26.0 comes out, you can just buy them in the shop. So if you want them, you can buy them. But you only get to pick one for free now. You got a couple weeks to deal with this. March 14th to March 28th. Cat. There is a cat that is very interested in Snuggles right now and disinterested in podcast. Yes.
Every
So
week.
you have a couple weeks to finish this. And as a reminder on Event Quests, if you want to complete it, just go play Hearthstone. You do not have to pay attention to this. I never do. It just kind of happens. If you want to chase the Event Quests, you can. But you really don't have to. If you are an engaged player, it just kind of happens. I'm already halfway through this, and I think I've done a couple of them. Okay. In addition, there's another event coming that I'm very excited about, a new Battle Bash. Remember, Battle Bash is like $10 for a bunch of cosmetics and BGs. You got to get a bunch of top 4s to get them. Except this is Corgi Cup. Corgi Cup Collection. There are Corgi emotes. There's a Corgi giving side-eye. There's a Corgi bartender. There's a Corgi board. I am so incredibly here for this. So that's coming on the 21st. So yeah. Also, as a note, if you are from Belgium, you don't get to do Battle Bashes. The icon will just be missing in your shop. It is because of local laws. I ran into this. We have a listener, Miguel, in the Discord that's from Belgium. It's just like, my game is bugged. There's no button. And then we asked, and it's like, are they from Belgium? Just, the button is just gone. It's weird. So, yeah. In addition, boy, they made a lot of BG's updates. I'm going to move pretty quickly through this. Again, Angry Chicken, full BG's episode, worth listening to. But just to go over at least the rules updates, well, they dropped everybody's health from 40 to 30. They changed how armor tiers work, because there are no more armor tiers. Now it's just a flat armor number that is basically bonus health given to every hero. So for most heroes, they got 10 health taken away and 10 armor added. But it's a specific value now. It is not a range of armor. It's no longer like 7 to 10. It is just a number that goes with that hero. Changeable server side. Viewable on the website, which I love. Really love that you can look up what you need to know about the game instead of trying to guess if a hero got buffed or nerfed. They changed the tavern tier cost 4 to 5 from 9 gold to 11 gold, which they've done in the past whenever buddies were around, because buddies are back. They are different than last time in terms of implementation. The button is replacing the meter. So the meter before was... it filled up when stuff happened. You had some control over it. Not as much, I think, as some players would have wanted. It was a little hard to keep track of. And then when it filled up halfway, you got one buddy. When it filled up all the way, then you got 2 more copies, which would make a golden buddy. So, now, there is a button. And your buddies have up to, they can be any tavern tier, 1 to 6, instead of just being 2, 3, or 4. And the cost of your button scales based on how good your buddy is. So, the lowest tier buddies, 11 gold for the first button, 13 for the second. The highest tier buddies, 21 gold for the first button, 23 for the second. Every combat you win or tie, it goes down by 3. Every combat you lose, it goes down by 2. So, winning obviously better, but it's a cost that goes down over time, and if you do better, it goes down faster. You decide when to press it. You decide when you get your buddy. You could spend your entire turn doing that, or you could wait until it costs nothing, or anywhere in between. Kind of cool. It feels a lot more intuitive to me to play with, and also gives me more of a feeling of agency, because I can decide when I get this thing, and there will be times when it costs me 8 gold to get my buddy, and I have 8 gold left, and I'm just like, I'll just do this now. And other times when it costs 5 gold, I'm like, I'm going to wait till next turn. I like that. So, there are a lot of new heroes. There's one new hero. There's a reworked hero powers, new buddies for all the heroes that didn't have them, buddy effect updates, including some very clever ones. There were a few buddies that they were broken with Bran, so they just changed battle cries to choose ones, or sell effects. So like Bilgewater Mogul, which used to be Gallywix's buddy, used to battle cry, give a minion +1/+1 for each gold you spent this turn. Now it's choose one, give a minion +1 attack or +1 health for each gold you spent this turn. It's half as good, and it doesn't scale with Bran. Or Ticketus, the ticket collector. It used to be battle cry, discover a Darkmoon prize from the next prize turn. Now it's when you sell it. It is when you get rid of it. So if you want the 2 prizes, you have to wait until you gold it. Different, clever, interesting. So, I don't know enough about BGs to tell you all the specifics here, but I will say that the format feels dynamic and interesting. I do think this iteration of buddies will be more compelling than the last, or at least will last longer. And I just love how much information they're actually giving us. Because there is a table on the website with specific armor amounts, specific tavern tiers. Data. And this is really interesting. There are some heroes where there's a big discrepancy between lower MMR and higher MMR. So they have different armor values based on your skill, based on your rank. So if you're at higher MMR, Daryl is worse. Maiev is worse. Ysera, Inni, and Patches are better, because the tribal heroes really overperform in beginner lobbies, whereas the high APM, high skill heroes really perform better at high skill lobbies. So because it wouldn't make sense to have a flat value, they just don't. It changes. So I didn't realize they had this kind of granularity, but I like it. And we will also note they have a ton of granularity, because there was a server-side patch today, 25.6.1, where they just changed a bunch of armor numbers. Just like this hero needs slightly more or slightly less. There's no armor tier here, they just picked the number they wanted. So, good. They get to do what they want now. That's nice. I think they got a taste of this with quests, where they got really granular control of hero balance, and they missed it, and so they wanted some back. Battlegrounds. Okay. To wrap up the patch discussion, bug fixes. There are a few. Multicaster, a month before it rotates, finally tells us how many cards it's going to draw.
Well, the best time to do this would have been 2 years ago. The second best time is now.
Yes.
So.
There are things like choose when effects could target dormant minions. I wonder how they found that out. Talented Arcanist no longer applies to Cataclysm spells. That I'm glad they fixed it, but also I don't think that's going to come up that much anymore. But okay. Avian Watcher wasn't gaining taunt. So whoever was out there Avian watching, you one person, if you're listening, it works now. For everyone else asking, what is Avian Watcher, don't worry about it. Just know that someone out there is much happier now.
I know what it is.
Yeah. I do too. I spend a lot of time on the Bird app. Mercenaries got some performance updates. They added some graphical improvements. to the friends list, especially the recent challenges or whatever. You can now see who you are eligible to spectate. They added support for the Hong Kong dollar, which I am adding to the list of things that indicate NetEase is not coming back anytime soon.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyways, there was an Android Pixel crash bug that has been fixed. In my experience, the mobile client just runs better now. Like, not a ton better, but noticeably better. Some localization issues got fixed, yeah. There are a couple known issues that y'all should know about, including a somewhat heartbreaking one for us here in podcast land.
Oh, yeah.
So, some known issues. First of all, Denathrius is resting in Battlegrounds because putting buddies and quests together, he's just chilling until they figure that out. They apparently found a bug late in testing. I am surprised that they didn't find bugs earlier. Well, they probably did, but that interaction is going to be tense because they both take up the same spot on the UI, and also just they've never had buddies and quests together. There were a lot of disconnects the day the patch came out, particularly in BGs. Just people stuck in lobbies that were disconnecting every turn. They fixed that about 6 hours in, but it's been inconsistent for a little bit over Tuesday, Wednesday, a little bit on Thursday. I will say you will probably notice some lag today, especially when you're trying to log in. That's not because of this. That's because of Diablo. So if Battle.net is giving you trouble today, it's Diablo. It's Edelweiss's fault. Yeah. The biggest issue, though, that we're currently dealing with here at Coin Concede is that background audio is broken on mobile devices. So when you were listening to something and then you go and play Hearthstone, and then the background audio stops. It is a known issue. They have a fix in the works for it, but it is a problem. I believe Ben Hearthstone said he found a workaround for it, that if you press play pause after Hearthstone starts up, then the background audio picks up again. I haven't tested this myself, but it's going to be a pain in the butt for those of you that are used to listening to podcasts or music while you're playing Hearthstone. So just be aware, they know about it. Please don't unsubscribe. We'll still be here, I promise. I promise. So yeah. There is one more weird bug. If you've completed every daily, every weekly, every BG's quest, and every event quest, then you can't open the journal, and the BG's reward will crash. This is assuming you've completed every quest in every mode, and this problem will go away as soon as you get a quest back. So, just leave one quest. You'll be fine.
Or
It only
just go
comes
open
up-
the journal.
Yes. This bug only comes up when there's nothing in your journal, so technically you aren't missing anything. It's impossible to get this bug if you have anything to check. But this is kind of like the reverse notification icon bug. Instead, it's disallowing you from seeing nothing. Kind of fascinating. So yeah. And there's one duel's hero power. It's not working right. The Paladin one. If you press the Paladin one, it brings back 2 minions instead of 1. I imagine that'll be patched pretty fast.
Yeah. I didn't run into that when I was playing duels, but I know that some folks in the Discord have, and it's gross. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's all the patch note stuff. Made pretty decent time, which is good because we have about 1 million years worth of cards to discuss. But I think I have a couple more news items here. Go through these quickly. Okay, they did update the shop odds on the website. They finally acknowledged pity timers. If you look at the website, it tells you exactly the maximum amount of packs you can go. And I actually wonder if they had to wait for Mercenaries to wind down, because Mercenaries does not have maximums. but the regular card packs got maxims added.
Or there's some new legal requirement that they have to disclose it somewhere. That's the other thing that could happen. I don't think anything's really changed in that regard, but with all these different regulations that are coming and going, it's possible that they felt like they needed to disclose that to keep up with some regulation somewhere.
And I believe they did disclose it for Mercenaries, and it's not there, which means there isn't one.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. But they officially acknowledged pity timers exist. The numbers are here. Pretty cool. Glad it's there. In addition, they updated new and returning deck lists. So the decks for new and returning players are now full standard lists because if you recall, they always include cards except the most recent expansion. Well, the most recent expansion for these lists is Festival of Legends, which isn't out yet. So they're full standard lists. In particular, the Priest list is just Undead Shadow Priest, the current best deck in the format. It is not quite how I'd build it, but it's surprisingly close. So you can just get these. You can go get Thief Rogue. You can go get Imp Warlock. If you are a new returning player, now is the time. These are powerful, good, well-constructed decks, and they have been updated just in time for the last month of Standard. Also, of note, I asked for clarification, would these be changing with core and rotation? And they said, yeah, some of the cards in here also rotate out, so I think it's a safe bet they'll change with 26.0. So just be aware. If you see a Bran in this list, no, that does not mean he is sticking around.
Or Void Touch Attendant, for that matter.
Correct. Yeah, Void Touch Attendant, Benedictus, the cards that are...
Shadow Spirit, yeah.
Yeah. So...
Shadowed Spirit has a decent chance of sticking around.
Yeah, but it is still a
think
core
so.
card that's eligible to rotate.
Right.
Yes.
Especially because they're doing a Priest core rework. I would expect that nothing in Priest is safe.
Yep. And finally, there was an interview, we're not going to go over the specifics here in the show, between Leo and Aleko over on esports.gg. It's linked in the show notes. Go check it out. All right. Steve, let's do tournaments real quick, and then we will get into Cardapalooza.
It's the grand tournament!
So just a couple of tournament notes. Some good, some not so good. One that's neutral is there was an article that Ben Heathstone had tweeted out a few days ago talking about there's this company called Uswitch that does online gaming statistics, and they were doing a bunch of different scores for different games, and Dota 2 was what the article was mostly about, talking about how it's one of the most complex esports, but the only esport that is more complex than Dota 2 is Hearthstone. So if you've been playing competitively or at a high level, know that you are playing one of the most complex online games possible, or at least that they're tracking in this survey.
They could not be more opposite in terms of prize pool, though.
Yeah. And speaking of which, so the Asian Games, which is coming up, had the coordination committee had a meeting on March 16th, and they had announced that Hearthstone is no longer part of the 19th Asian Games. This is not entirely a surprise, given that the Asian Games is going to be held in Guangzhou, and Hearthstone is no longer a thing in China. So that probably makes it figured into their decision pretty strongly, given that the host country wouldn't have been able to participate in one of the games being held. But it's still pretty sad. There were a number of APAC players. I know I saw Possessi tweeting about this earlier in the week, that they were really looking forward to this. This is one of the last, big events that they were eligible for and that they were, training for. And with that no longer there, that's going to affect how they're, participating going forward. It's unfortunate. It's just a little bit more fallout from the China decision, unfortunately. That said, if you are in Europe, there is an invitational from Solari. So Team Solari does invitational tournaments usually once an expansion. They are doing an open qualifier for it this time around. So the actual invitational will be held the 15th and 16th of April, which is going to coincide with when the new expansion is live. The open qualifiers are starting this Sunday, March 19th, and also running on the 25th and the 26th. And then there's going to be a final among the winners of those qualifiers on the 2nd of April. So if you have a Europe account, I presume that this is going to be an in-person event, so you need to be able to travel. I think they're in France, right? Solari?
Yes.
So you probably need to be able to travel to that. I mean, I don't read French, so I wasn't reading through all the terms and conditions, but there will be a link in the show notes. Go to Team Solari's Twitter account and go check that out. And maybe I might, if these qualifiers seem large, I might have enough data to make a dashboard this weekend. Maybe we'll see. That'll
Hope
be
you like
interesting to be
figuring out
able
the
to-
new deck code.
Oh well, I'll Heartstem probably hopefully updated their package, and I'll just take that and update my code. But yeah, I don't because Donkey had a whole lot of technical information in the tech stuff channel in the Discord about what he had to do to because they changed the way the deck codes are constructed to account for ETC. I'm not smart enough to figure that out, but I know where the packages are that do those kinds of things for me, so I don't have to be smart. So hopefully they've updated that. If not, then I probably won't be, but or Donkey might be kind and generous and help me out, but we'll see. But yeah, that's tournaments, so I guess we can just talk about cards.
Let's go.
All right, so like I said earlier, theming of this set, awesome. We're gonna start off with Death Knight, which of course was metal, and the first card we have here, Arcanite Ripper.
Hold on a second.
So-
Hold on. We need to game plan here a little bit. We're not card by carding.
No,
So-
we're not card by carding, but we haven't covered any of the weapons. So I
Okay.
think we want to cover like a piece of each of the mechanics. We want to do the legendaries, right?
And then any particular callouts that anyone wants to talk about. Okay.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah. So, since we didn't touch on the weapons earlier, the first one we have here, Arcanite Ripper, is a 3-mana, 3/2 weapon that I think is pretty interesting. It's whenever your life total changes on your turn, or it
No.
upgrades. So, I think that means it goes from 1/1 to 2/2 to 3/3. So at minimum, if you swing into 2 minions with this, you're going to summon a 3/3 on the death rattle. But you could also just be sitting there and not having things to swing at for a bit. Maybe you play a Vampiric Blood or do other stuff to affect your life total, and you will get a bigger lifesteal minion for waiting to trigger the death rattle. And they seem to be leaning pretty heavily into lifesteal for all the blood stuff so far that we've seen.
I mean, presumably you could change your health on more than once on a turn and have that.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Vampiric
I don't
Blood
know
is
how
2, right?
Blood Boil.
Vampiric Blood is 5 and 5.
It may be. Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
sure. There's
Well, I
another
guess
card
it's-
where I'm not
it's a
sure if it.
question, right, of like when it resolves, right? Because if this effect resolves after Vampiric Blood is done casting, it's probably just one change, right? But it's the same thing with Blood Boil, right? Like, is Blood Boil one trigger, or is Blood Boil one per minion because it goes pop, 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 right?
I would think one per minion.
Yeah,
I would think it would
Blood
actually
Boil is
just be the
nuts.
one pop, right?
No, I think Blood Boil is going to be the nuts.
It's a single lifesteal minion with no charge or rush on a death rattle. I think you can let people dream. I think you can do that. And the team has been leaning into that. It like if you make a single large lifesteal minion, you're just gonna light it, burns it anyways. You don't care. So it's. I feel like if you're waiting until turn 6 to get a non-rush lifesteal minion down, it's okay for that to be big. It's all right. I don't think that's hurting anybody. Because remember that Blood Boil doesn't trigger till end of turn, so you have to wait. There's so much waiting there.
Right.
You're Blood Death Knight. You're okay with waiting. That's your thing. That's what you do. You're
But
waiting for your Mograine to trigger at the end of your turn every turn for your opponent to eventually die.
Right. I think, Blood has needed some help with how fast stuff has been, and I think it's going to quickly advance in this set because they're getting a lot more proactive stuff. So being able to make all these lifesteal things of pretty good size to actually beat down the opponent, I think kind of goes in line better with Mograine. Because Mograine is better if you are already pressuring the opponent's life total.
Yeah. It's also only 1 blood, so it could fit into Rainbow.
That's true. Yeah. No, and I think it'll be quite good in something like Rainbow.
Why don't we just do that now? Because you really want to talk about cinematic or climactic necrotic explosion, don't you?
God, I
Yeah,
love the name of that card. It is
it's so good.
So good.
It's so
We
by the
won't
way,
get into the Blizzlet reasons why that name is great, but
we're gonna call it CNE. By the way, that's what this card is going
Yeah.
to be abbreviated to. So just be
yeah, that's good. So
go.
CNE is a 10 mana card. It is rainbow, so 1 of each rune. Lifesteal, very important. Lifesteal. Deal damage, summon souls, randomly improved by corpses you've spent. And the starting values are deal 5 and then summon 2 1/1 souls. So the way that this works is for each corpse spent, it's like Marrowgar. It spends all your available corpses. And for each one spent, it
No, it
can
doesn't spend.
improve.
It doesn't spend your corpses. It's based
You
on
have to
what
spend them
spent
elsewhere.
At that point. You spend the corpses, and that improves this. It tracks your corpses earned over the course of the game. I don't even think this has to be in your hand to improve, right?
Correct.
This is
Yeah.
this is much worse then. But
No, I think it's probably better because it's tracking all of the corpses you've spent over the course of the game.
so Rainbow will have to include a lot more corpse spenders then, I guess is the issue. Because the reason why I thought this was perfect is that very frequently I am not really spending corpses because there's not much to spend them on. It's like defrost, end of list. So
or random stuff that you discover along the way.
right. Yeah. I think it will make you value discovering stuff that spends them, or maybe it means that you run something like the 5-drop that spends, up to 10 corpses and makes a big thing. Maybe that
Is
becomes
blood
more
tap
worth it.
is blood tap 1 blood?
2.
2.
Oh, it's 2?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, all right, slight misinterpretation there by me in terms of how it works, but so for each time you've spent corpses, or each corpse you've spent this game, it upgrades one of those numbers. So you don't know, so it is reliable in that sense, but minimum knowing that you get 5 damage in lifesteal is great, and it summons minions. So it can summon additional minions. That's a way it can upgrade, go from 2 to 3 to 4, etc. Or it can upgrade the attack of the minions, or it can upgrade the health of the minions, or it can upgrade, the damage dealt. So it totally goes in with the theming for the way I've built Rainbow DK already, which is everything like kill stuff and make stuff at the same time. And I really hope the animation is as good as like the name and art and everything here, because this is so far my favorite card revealed.
And they're gonna play the song when you play
Yeah.
it too, right? Like
I
each
think
one of them
all the
has themes.
spells are gonna be really cool in that way, that they'll have like special music. Like if you remember the mage legendary that plays that guitar chord.
Oh, Mordresh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this better just be more than just like one
Well, sure.
note.
Yeah.
This better be like a whole music video that's coming out.
Limited on time, but
It's important to note, specifically with this card, you can't discover it out of rune. This is the first hard-coded exception that we have, where they said, we loved what this card did for Rainbow DK, but did not love other DK decks generating this super win
Oh
condition.
god, yeah. Yeah, like Unholy would be
Marigar is
disgusting.
obviously not an okay thing to do before
Right.
this.
But if you can discover Marogar in Rainbow,
The thing that concerns me here is that we are entering into manually curated pools because we wanna. And I do think that is a slippery slope where, because of this exception, I feel confident in betting a couple packs that by this time next year, DK Discover will be limited to your runes. That
Yeah.
it's pretty hard to make this kind of exception, but say Frostworm's Fury is fine, or Vampiric Blood or Grave Strength are fine because they're all also very powerful cards. This one just is bigger and flashier, and is in a color combination, a rune combination that people aren't going to normally be inclined to play unless you are Edelweiss. So,
I think it's very possible as well that has always been the intent, but it just would be too consistent for Discover with the limited number of cards so far.
so you're
in the
saying
pool.
they intended it as a drawback to make it so that DK's had a bigger pool instead of always finding
Right.
Frostworm's Fury.
I mean, drawback or benefit depending on where you sit. Obviously, it feels bad or good if you are playing something not Frost and you hit Frostworm's Fury. Excellent high roll, right? But if you imagine the other scenario where Frost can only discover things from Frost, the number of times they hit Frostworm's Fury would be infuriating.
Same thing, or I mean, blood with how many vampiric bloods you would get beyond what you're already getting now, especially with School Teacher still in standard.
Oh yeah, no, that'd be nuts.
Yeah. There are probably some middle grounds here. It's a new system that they have no precedent for in Hearthstone. But I think it's fair to say, when we start getting into manual curation here, kind of hard to justify some but not others. So I wonder where they will land. That being said, this card is sweet. I don't think it's particularly good right now. We'll have to wait for all the DK reveals, but it's a lot of time and effort for something. The minions don't have rush. It's just lifesteal damage. You don't draw cards. It better deal a lot of damage and have a lot of big minions. And
It depends on how many other corpse spenders we get for Rainbow, right? Because if we get some more efficient corpse spenders, we've already seen half the set for Death Knight, so that's not looking super likely. But if we get enough efficient corpse spenders for Rainbow, then this will be good. Otherwise, you're depending on discovering things. And this is also a card that could get better as we get more sets, right? Because eventually you will get more one rune spenders. So eventually this might get to a point where you have a corpse spending Rainbow DK. It may not be right now, but this is a card that could get better with more corpse spending support.
And they currently have a couple of runeless corpse spenders that aggressively spend corpses in Malignant Horror and Corpse Bride. So maybe in a 4-set meta, those become more viable and make their way into the list specifically to buff something like this card.
But also, I don't envision a 10-mana spell getting better contextually as more cards come out, because better things will happen. This is slow and not super defensive, outside of a bunch of lifesteal damage, which is nice, and might be enough.
It's a finisher. If you get the right number to go up.
So I think it's going to be a finisher in the way that Denathrius was a finisher against aggressive decks, where you didn't kill them, but you gained enough life and had a big threat that you won the game. Because you can't rely on it doing enough damage to kill them. There's got to be some clips, right, of someone just being like, well, I need to roll enough damage.
Yeah.
And
everything
happen.
goes damage, right? Like summon two 1/1s and do 25 damage, right? Like that's
probably not that much, but
yeah.
Yeah.
Though you see the upgrades in hand. It's not a mystery what it's going to do. It's not like it's random when you cast a spell.
Oh, that I didn't know.
Yeah, it improves.
Yeah,
it's just like
yeah.
You'll see it before you cast it.
It's like when you
That's
trade an Amulet of Undying, right? You see how many things it's going to summon.
Yep.
Yeah, but that's like that's one track. That's easier to
Yeah,
know
but I
that.
mean, you're still gonna
It's,
see
it's
it.
like Dr. Boom's scheme.
No.
Nothing's like
okay.
Dr. Boom's.
Moving on.
Mechanically
anyway.
speaking.
Very
yes.
excited for that card.
Yeah, we don't need to talk about the card, but can we just talk about the flavor text from Screaming Banshee? Because that's just, it's delightful. Her singing will be
It's-
sure to wake you up inside.
Oh, the amount of
Where's this
musical
from?
references in this set are crazy.
Oh, it's so
that
good.
is Evanescence.
Yes.
Oh, of course.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow, that's
It's a
That's-
deep cut. Yeah.
it's also
I
a
mean,
little cruel.
this is the same game that took the Spin Doctors 2 princes and put them across all 3 princes from Knights of the Frozen Throne. So, you know, like there's a high bar here, and I'm glad that they're already hitting it. So
Yeah.
Yes.
And that card goes in line with the life steal minion making theme that they seem to be putting in for blood. That's another single rune card. So, yeah, interesting stuff happening there. I wonder if there's going to be mostly single rune cards to kind of support Rainbow in this. But
Seems logical. We'll see. Um,
Druid
next legendary
card is
here?
not super relevant. Yeah.
nah,
Paladin.
Starlight Groove. Let's talk about this.
Oh,
oh,
we're losing Cariel, but man, are we getting a replacement. Starlight-
Let's not go nuts.
Okay,
here.
okay. It is not the
Yeah.
same, but it is way cooler.
Yeah.
You know, it's gonna be new
It's
and
groovier.
fresh. Yeah. Starlight Groove, 3 mana holy spell. Give your hero Divine Shield. For the rest of the game, playing a holy spell refreshes it. This is super fun. I think particularly because you've got some things like the self-damage spell, right? So if you've cast this and then you play
Oh, Seal of Blood. So you
yeah,
pop your
Seal of
Divine
Blood.
Shield and then get it back. That's fun. That's fun. I
Yeah.
hadn't thought about that. I enjoy that. That's
Yeah,
very
that's
fun.
pretty cool.
I like
actually.
that.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a lot of fun interactions. We still have Holy Maki Roll, which is not like super relevant. I don't think there's going to be a thing that Paladin plays where it's like deal damage to both players when you play Holy Spell. That's not really a thing.
Well,
But-
you could play the 2/1 that does damage to your face and play the Maki roll to get the shield back. Right? Like
Right,
Maki
whatever.
roll, play the 2/1, Maki roll. Like you could do, I mean, it's not gonna be relevant because it's all the same turn, like that much,
Right.
but there are like little interactions you could do.
Yeah, it is not going to be as nuts as Cariel, which good.
Good.
But it's going to be really nice, particularly with, something that was kind of a bummer with Cariel was that you were very disincentivized to running any weapons because if you got them post Cariel, you just couldn't play them. And so this is something where you can play your weapon and you are further incentivized to do weapons because you can play a holy spell. Now I have Divine Shield, I hit a minion. And so you can control how much damage you're preventing. I think there's a lot of cool ways to use this card. We are losing Knight of Anointment, so you can't like tutor it. But it would be hard anyway because you need a number of holy spells to make it worthwhile.
And we're losing Battle Vicar too, right?
Think
We're
so.
losing a bunch of stuff.
that's
Battle
discover
Vicar
a
is
holy spell,
Anixia's
so-
lair. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, listen, if there is a Paladin deck that wants the game to go longer, you're gonna play this. But don't get too excited here. You should play it. This is a lot of noble sacks. You can get a noble sacrifice per turn. It's annoying. And if you're playing a Holy Paladin deck, you want to be annoying, but it stops the first hit of anything. And
Right.
when that's up to your opponent, it's not a lot. It's not a lot going on.
I mean, if there are certain decks that it will frustrate more than others, like something like a Miracle Rogue. Like, yeah, they usually have the little minions, but if you can get rid of the little minions, and then
Well,
there's just like the giant ones,
Ghostly
then
Strike.
I mean, yeah, it
Well,
still doesn't work
they've
because
already
they have a
used that by
hero
that
power.
point, it's fine.
Like half the hero powers.
Concoctions.
Yeah, I guess the dagger. Well, I mean, if it's a Draka weapon, right? Like if they've gone in right and they've got a Draka weapon and then two giants, then at least like you're soaking one of those. I mean, yeah, Ghostly Strike, but also they've often used Ghostly Strike. I'm in Magical Christmas land, so
Astalor,
you know,
concoctions.
I am
Rogue
going
never
for.
has 1 damage. It's fine.
I am much more interested in the ways that we can take advantage of this on our turn, either with all the self-damage stuff or just weapons, right? And we haven't gotten to do a ton of weapons in Paladin for a while, so I'm happy to be able to use this with weapons again.
Or just 4 Quel'Thalas, which just gives your hero attack.
Yeah.
Like, you can just play that.
Right? Yeah, absolutely.
Feast and
Perfect for
Feast and
that one.
Famine, which gives you attack and lifesteal. That's a holy spell.
Yep.
Which is kind of nice.
That one's not a holy. Oh no, maybe it is. Yeah. I thought it
Yeah.
wasn't.
I don't. Let's see. Feast and Famine, Hearthstone. It is not a holy spell. You're right.
Yeah, but for Quel'Thalas, I'm pretty sure it is.
It is.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's a cool effect. If you're in a Holy Paladin deck, you should play it.
Yep.
We will talk about Fan Club, because
Well, it's a new
It's-
location, right? So that's
it's a new
that's
location.
notable. And Fan Club is a 1 mana location for priest, 2 durability, restore 3 health to all friendly characters. Presumably, we're getting a fair amount of overheal support. This will proc all of it. So I mean, there's going to be just the healing as normal. Like, this is like a circle of healing that you get to play twice for 1 card, effectively. So we have to see the other overheal effects. We only have 1 right now, but presuming that there are enough overheal effects, you will want to run this card.
Yeah, and then Priest also got one of the finale feature cards. Choose a minion, add a copy of it to your hand for 2 mana. Finale, give both +1/+2. This
Sure.
is one that I think is clever in that you can specifically not finale if you want to take an opponent's minion and you don't want to buff it, or obviously if you're doing one of your own ones, you get to buff both.
Or you
That's
buff
nice.
it and then just silence it. It's fine.
also the flavor text directly references Pokemon Red and Blue. You talk to the president of the fan club, gives you a bike voucher.
You're talking about the Fan Club text, not Power Words.
yeah.
I thought you were talking about Power Words Seminaries.
No, I'm not. I wasn't paying attention.
Okay.
And then we already talked about the overheal minion, but just the concept of overheal is exciting to me.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see
Wait.
what they do with it. It'll be very
Did we
interesting.
talk about this?
Yeah, we did
It-
when we talked about the overheal keyword.
Okay. Yeah. Cool minion.
It's priest. It's fine if you don't pay attention during that discussion.
Well, we really need to see more than anything. We need to see the context of both core and this, because they specifically said there's going to be overheal in core. So I'm really expecting Southshire Cleric or something similar. Like, it just makes too much sense. And overheal lets priest be proactive. So I imagine they're going to do a lot of that.
Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be something that gets buffed when it's overhealed. Like not this priest quest, but the last one, right? The one from Uldum, when you heal it, that it also buffed it, right? So maybe there's
Yeah.
gonna be something where it gets buffed when it gets overhealed. I'm sure there's going to be, when it gets overhealed, heal your hero. There's a lot of things they can do, but we have no idea what any of them are going to be. So we just need to wait for that.
Yep.
Correct. All right. Rogue cards. I'm going to talk about Record Scratcher real quick here. 3 mana, 2/2 weapon. Death Rattle, refresh 1 mana crystal. Play combo cards while equipped to improve. So,
This is gonna be silly.
maybe there are not very many good combo cards right now. There are cards that feel like they have combo, but don't. Like Serrated Bone Spike. That does not have combo. Fun card. I like it. But it's really just Ghostly Strike and Gone Fishing. Those are the two. And Shadow Demise if you're copying something with combo.
I wouldn't be surprised if they're bringing some back into core. Wicked Stab is leaving, so they might say, "Hey, Eviscerate's back."
Don't toy with my heart. Don't.
You could play
been
Cold
hurt.
Blood again, Hat.
Yeah.
If Cold Blood doesn't cost 1 mana, it's not my Cold Blood.
They did reveal this one, a mech 3 mana 4/3 beatboxer combo, deal 4 damage randomly split among all enemies. So that one I think is pretty decent, and might lead to some board clears for Rogue that are, although it does have the Flamewaker problem of it can go face. So Not
Maybe this is
reliable in terms of
Bootstrap's
clears.
sunken years time to shine.
but I think Record Scratcher, like, you get 3 crystals back and you're happy. And I feel
Yeah.
like there will probably be enough combo cards to at least, get a couple back.
I'm not happy with 3 crystals back because why am I running this in my deck if I'm breaking even? Rogues don't
Okay,
break even.
all right.
So Miracle Rogue doesn't lose that much. This
But
never
it's
goes in Miracle.
storage, right? You're
I don't need
storing
storage.
mana then.
Okay.
I don't need that.
Can I point something out? Field contact is rotating. Field contact had to be constraining design space for combo. Right?
It's
So presumably
Maybe?
that's why since the end of last year, like all the combo cards that have gotten printed this past year have been underwhelming and expensive because field contact is an abusable card, and they saw that in like Stark to Tail when Garrett Rogue was the thing. I would not be surprised both that we get some good combo cards to play with this. They're not going to print a card like that, certainly for Rogue, and not give it support. And I would not be surprised if there are some good combo cards that go back into core.
Yeah, like Swindle could come back.
Yeah.
you're toying with my heart. Don't.
I know. I shouldn't give you this kind of hope, but I do think that Record Scratcher, the way it lines up, if you are just banking tempo, right? You play it for 3, you swing, and the next turn you play a couple of combo cards and then something to take advantage of them, like location or whatever. That is going to be pretty solid. And there will be times where you just pop up with a whole bunch of combo cards on turn 4, and it'll be really nutty. But it is capped anyway, naturally, by the number of mana crystals you have, because it's refresh. It is not, coins. So most you can get back on turn 4 is 4.
Yeah, you don't play this in Miracle ever. You play this in decks with expensive cards. This is something I play in Death Rattle Rogue. Something like Death Rattle Rogue, right? You want to have a deck with 4s and 5s and stuff, as opposed to a deck that tops the curve at 3 except for Draka. Because if Miracle Rogue needed this now, it would not currently be the best deck at top 1k Legend, which it is. You don't need this to do miracle things. You don't need this just to go in on location and Draka. You need this if you're doing bigger stuff and your deck is less efficient, and you have room for Ghostly Strike, Gone Fishing, that sort of thing. Which is why Death Rattle Rogue, I think, is where it fits the bill if it was right now, right this exact moment. But probably not a bad Thief Rogue card either. Probably a pretty decent Thief Rogue card. It can't be in these super cutting edge efficient Rogue decks because then the 3 mana upfront asking price is already more than anything I'm doing in that deck, except for Sinstone Graveyard. And this is worse than Sinstone Graveyard. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm going to save that soundbite of you saying we don't run it in Miracle because I just don't know about that. I think it could do some pretty powerful stuff, assuming that there are combo cards that the deck wants to run anyway. But you're for sure right. Death Rattle, it makes sense because you can double the effect. So you don't need as many.
Oh yeah, you can do that too. But I'm just thinking, I want a deck where I do like a 5 or a 4 into another 5 or 4. I want to go a little bigger than just 3 mana up front, get it back next turn. That's not exciting to me. That's not something that I really have to worry about because we're already playing a bunch of Scribbling Stenographers for free. I don't need 3 mana back for a cost of 3 mana. Like, that's not what I'm looking for in Miracle. That's what I'm looking for in something that's a little bit less efficient. It's interesting. People will try it. We also have 8 more Rogue cards to see, so we'll see what ends up happening. All right.
Yeah.
Scrolling down. Skipping the Shaman card, I do want to talk about Void Virtuoso real quick. Both Warlock cards, actually, but Void Virtuoso. 1 mana, 1/3, Demon. During your turn, your hero is immune. Cool. I don't know what I do with this yet. I don't know what I do with this yet, but I want to do something.
I mean, we're losing the quests, right? So like,
correct.
The Warlock quest is no longer going to be a thing. Like, what were we doing to hit ourselves?
You don't want this
face?
with the Warlock quest because that triggers self-damage.
Right. No, I'm saying that like this is a way to get whatever the self-damage things that were printed post quests in this past year would have been. I just don't know what those are that we want to do.
I mean,
other than the hero power, obviously.
So I don't know if they would realistically bring this back in any meaningful way. But things we generally did with this kind of effect are making both players draw from fatigue.
Oh.
And so if Warlock has more like Altar of Fire type things or a new neutral
Or Soul.
legendary,
Yeah.
perhaps.
Well, I guess Soul Rend is just them, but yeah, that's
Just
going away.
something where you're drawing both players, right? But it's hurting them and not hurting you. This being 1 mana to protect yourself is very efficient.
Well,
I don't know if that's what it's gonna be.
Wild Mill Warlock. There you go.
But at minimum, it is, well, your hero power doesn't hurt you, right?
Yeah.
That's
Turn 3, play a 1/3 draw card. Don't take 2 damage. You did it.
I mean, it's also just
There's
like
got to be a.
turn 1, play it. If they don't
Yeah.
kill it, you get a free tap. I mean, that's a good deal.
It's a demon.
Yep.
I don't know if it counts as an imp. I would imagine not.
It's not an imp.
No, I think it's like
This is a
Voidwalker.
Voidwalker.
I mean, it's probably got soft taunt to some extent because
Yeah.
you don't really want your opponent just life tapping without paying for it.
Yeah.
So
There's going to be other Warlock stuff that works with this. They mention it in the video. We should also talk about the only soloist we've seen, Opera Soloist. 5 mana, 4/6 demon. Battlecry, if you control no other minions, deal 3 damage to all enemy minions. I was going to say it doesn't hit your own stuff, but you don't have any, so that was already
Yeah.
going to be true.
Yeah.
is this better than Hellfire? I guess it doesn't hit your face
Yeah. I mean,
because Hellfire only costs 4. I mean, you're not
It's 1
playing
more
this on
mana
a
for
board that you
4,
have
6, and
minions.
3 life. Like, that's probably worth it.
Yeah, I guess that's probably good. Yeah, I mean the
Yeah.
body is not insignificant.
not as good as Entitled Customer in terms of size of things it can clear, but I think deal 3 at 5 mana has been a like decent
Yeah.
amount of clear.
That's
a
when it
bit.
starts falling off, right? Like
For
four,
sure,
like
for
4
sure.
mana is generally like that's where you have like Lightmon Nether Drake. That's generally okay when you can play it on curve and gets
Yeah.
pretty bad after that. But it also only hits the opponent. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's
Right,
not hitting
yeah.
itself, I guess. Which it wouldn't anyway.
The things
So-
I think of are like 5 is often a point where classes, if they do this, they summon 3/3s. So Demon Hunter has the thing that summons Lifesteal minions, summons 3/3s. Shaman has the Coral Keeper that makes 3/3s based on how many spell schools you've used this game. There used to be the Spellstone for Hunter that made 3/3s
Yeah,
at 5. So like that is a common point where 3/3s are summoned, and so this is a good answer to that if that's a thing that's happening.
And I guess we played Tamsin enough for. I mean, you're not playing
For sure.
it for the effect, but
Are we
you're
comparing
playing
this
it.
to Hero Tamsin? Is that what we're doing
mean,
right now?
I
Come
mean,
on,
Hero
buddy.
Tamsin's at 6. This is at 5, right?
It also gained you life and drew you 3 cards.
I am aware of that, but I'm talking about the times when you needed to clear with it specifically because like you would just slam Hero Tamsin on 6 most of the time. But I mean, here it's like how often was the clear from Hero Tamsin relevant by 6? And it's not not a trivial amount of the time.
I think a decent amount. Sometimes it involved making trades first, which in this
Yeah.
case you would have to. But
I do think that a lot of the interesting applications here would have been like killing your own Amorphous Slime, but you can't do that. So I'm curious how often this will come up, because quite often Warlock was cool with killing their own stuff. But
Yeah.
we'll see. I envision this falling off as more cards get added to Standard, but it could see play in a 4-set format. Entitled Customer does rotate, but also of note, those of you snappers out there, Max Grek illustration, fun to see that name. I have some of his variants. Okay.
Yeah.
Neutral time. So there are a bunch of neutrals. We're not going to go through all of them. We are going to talk about the legendaries. We are going to talk about a couple cool ones. And we are going to talk about Tony. Tony's the last one. It's the last one. But we have to move with a decent pace through these. So
Can we just talk about the flavor of the neutrals though, really quickly?
Oh,
as a
yes,
whole?
the reveal
Like, the fact
sequence
that-
was really fun. It was
Yeah.
crew, equipment, and like security staff, like event staff. Really fun.
Yeah, I mean the fact that it's all the people who are working at the festival are all the
Is this-
neutrals.
Is this all the neutrals? Like we've got them all
we
now?
got more
Oh, okay.
tomorrow, so we only got like half of them. But
Okay.
like all the people who are like either like hanging out at or working the festival are all the neutrals, which is a really cool theme that's tying everything together.
And I think notable as well, we go through waves of having, a bunch of mechs or not. With the audio equipment stuff, this is a higher mech set. So I wouldn't be surprised if stuff like, mech mage, mech paladin kind of make waves again, particularly because we're back in 4 set. So those kind of strategies are probably going to resurface with some of the mechs from this set. One mech in particular I think we need to make note of. We were wondering how Druid would be able to get to 11 mana in a post-Guff environment. There is a neutral mech, 2 mana, 2/3, audio amplifier, battle cry, set your maximum mana and hand size to 11. So people were like afraid Guff was going to be in core. That was like the worst case scenario, or just wondering, is Druid specifically going to get a card out of this set? It's a neutral. So we've seen it already. I'm
Did you see the flavor
assuming that's
text on
gonna be
this?
the only thing.
You see the flavor text on this?
Yes.
The flavor
Oh,
text on this says, "And you thought we were putting Wildheart Guff in core. We'd never do that. Wink, wink." I'm concerned.
It's so evil.
I am very
they're just
afraid,
messing
yes.
with us. They're trolling at this point.
Also, I'm going to always call this card Spinal Tapper in my head. I'm going to do that forever.
I'm sad that it's not called that.
I'll do 11.
Gotten them sued.
It's-
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to get sued? You can't do that. Also of note, sets your maximum. This does not draw you a card or ramp you mana.
Right.
If you are thinking, should I play this? No. You have to have a reason to spend 11 mana all at once that wins you the game. Otherwise, they should not be in your deck, because the vast majority of your games will not go to turn 11. And if it does, that extra mana and extra card in hand that you could hold won't matter all that much unless you have something really specific to do with it. Otherwise, put your thumb over the text. It is a River Crocolisk. We don't play those.
Yeah.
It's very much
Unless-
a combo card.
Unless something like Goldshire Knoll gets printed again, right? Goldshire Knoll is rotating. So theoretically, like there were some niche use cases where we had like, was it Valdris Felgorge or whatever the warlock legendary that set your hand size to 12, and I mean that drew you cards, but there might be some edge cases where you have specific combos where you need 11 mana, or you or you need to have 11 cards in hand for something that cares about the size of your hand. Bran is rotating. Bran has been the answer to all of those things.
Right.
So Bran is going away. We Chorus said so. So like this is not going to let you Bran Astalor, get that out of your head right now, unless you're in Wild.
Because that was
Yeah.
already an issue when everyone could do it using Kael'thas. So they're not about to have everyone be able to do it because of audio amplifier instead. It would be different. It would be later in the game. But yeah, I think Bran going away, maybe one of the more Battlecry specific classes like Shaman will have access to something like that. But in general, this is for specifically, I need 11 mana to do the thing. And so a combo deck might run this.
Or you'll get it off Amalgam of the Deep sometimes, and you'll just take it. And
Sure.
maybe you care about the text. Maybe it's a River Croc.
Yeah, Thaddeus is a good point. Someone in chat mentioned. Normally, if you hard play Thaddeus at 10, you can't play anything. This at least lets you play one card alongside it.
We're
Probably still
dreaming
not
pretty
good enough.
big here, huh? We're dreaming,
Yeah.
dreaming pretty big about that. Turn 11 Thaddeus plus one card. That'll get us there.
Yeah, I think you still just run the undead to make Thaddeus 3 and then.
Plague Spreader is
Kill the
still in
opponent.
standard. I'm going to say that a few times over the course of these cards.
It's
God, I hate that
Also,
card. Okay.
like, one drops are still in standard. It's you got to play the first 10 turns of the game. All right.
Yeah.
Gonna go through some other cards pretty quickly here. Hipster, 2 mana, 1/3, Battlecry. Discover a spell from your opponent's class that isn't in their deck. Flavor text, oh, so you like Hearthstone? Name every spell. I don't think this card is good, but I love the flavor so much, and apparently he has multiple dismissive snobby voice lines. Here for it, all about it. But don't care about the card itself, just the flavor. All right, Instrument Tech. 2 mana, 1/2 neutral. Battlecry, draw a weapon. This was the last card revealed today. It was accidentally delayed. So Cage Match Custodian was a 2/2 instead of a 1/2 for Shaman. And the 2/2 mattered. This body is trash, but 2 mana tutor a weapon in neutral for 2 years is going to be a big deal.
Yeah.
Particularly because I think they've said every class is getting a weapon again, including non-weapon classes. So obviously, those classes are not going to have a class tutor for just, that one weapon for them. This gives something like a mage the ability to tutor whatever their class instrument is.
Yeah. I do wonder if this finally means Doomhammer's going out of core, maybe?
How many Doomhammers have you seen the past year?
I would.
We've had Cage Match Custodian the whole time. It's not.
Yeah, no, but and we had Doomhammers when Cage Match Custodian was in standard. I believe.
It is in standard.
Oh, it's still in standard now?
Yeah.
That rotated a year ago, didn't it?
Yeah,
Or is it
really?
in...
I was gonna say.
Oh no, we have the one that gives you an elemental.
Yeah. So
Alright.
like, in a 4-set meta, I could see tutoring a Doomhammer being pretty relevant.
This gets
I'd
a
be a
Swordfish.
little worried.
It gets an Imbued X. There are relevant cards here.
Yeah.
But I'm not convinced by a 2 mana 1/2 because a 2 mana 1/2 sucks. But 2 mana 1/2 draw what I want. We're gonna see this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
targeted draw has often been relevant, even at the cost of stats. So
Okay. Festival Security. Steve, go.
Oh. So Festival Security is a 2 mana or 3 mana 2/5 taunt with Finale. Force all enemy minions to attack this. So it's a fairly good card that you can play against Swarm decks. You can hand buff it and make it that much more effective. Though, if you're hand buffing it, then you either need to do it very quickly, or you need to find other ways to use your mana. Because after you're playing it on curve, then you need to find a way to use the rest of your mana before this. But I mean
that's just turn 5, right?
Yeah.
You can play the blood hand buff spell for 2 mana and then play this on 5, and I think that's pretty solid.
Or you could just hero power and play this on 5, right?
Right,
Like,
but if we're saying in terms of like just fitting stuff into a curve, like okay, I've built up a hand size that I want to buff, and then I play that blood spell and play this as a 4/7, pretty solid.
But even if you could just play it on curve and like wipe out an early like aggro druid board, for instance, like you'll clear off most of an aggro druid board with this on turn 3. Like that's fine, right? Or like an unholy death knight board, right? Then I mean there might be a foul egg on it. You may not want that to happen, but if you need to get rid of like an arms dealer and a skeletal sidekick or whatever, just to get the board clear, like that's a neutral tool that any class can use, just as a way to stem off an initial like swarm deck, which again can, in the right environment in a 4-set meta, could be overwhelming without a tool like that. Also, it's a Tortollan who's the Festival Security, which is kind of hilarious that the flavor text is like, oh, there's a mosh pit, I'll be there in a year.
Yeah. I like where this card's at. It's a nice middle ground of, like, it's not Rush Wind Fury, but it's also not just sitting there. It is pretty mid against any kind of non-attacking sort of deck. The taunt can be relevant against like a Feldh or whatever, but if you were to see this against a Control Priest, it does nothing. It's not.
Yeah.
Just not a card.
It's a taunt. 3 mana 2/5 taunt is fine. 5 is still a fair, if you're playing it on an empty board, 5 is a decent amount of health to have to chew through. It's not, we've talked about this before, right? That like if the finale's not happening, that 5 health on a taunt early is actually pretty significant as a roadblock, or at least a speed bump.
The card has to do something though. Like Overconfident Orc was complete trash as a 6 health taunt because it was usually just a 3 mana 1/6 taunt. It was just bad. So it has to do something, but I do think that Festival Security is better than Overconfident Orc.
Yeah. I mean, if it kills one thing and it's a 2/3 taunt left behind for 3 mana, you take that.
Yep. All right. Metronome, 3 mana 2/4
Yeah.
mech. After you play a 1-cost card, draw 2, and then increase. So after you play a 1, draw 2. After you play a 2, draw 3. After you play a 3, draw 4. You get the idea where this is going. And I'll say this, Metronome, just a good tempo minion.
Yep.
Ah,
I do have
see
a
what you
question
did there.
about it though. So does it check actual cost or reduced cost?
Well, it
I
checks
think it's
whatever's in the
it's
deck.
It's usually played cost, right?
This is drawing from your deck, so it checks what the current status of something is in your deck. Cards, like, cost-setting text is not active in the deck. So if it's something like a Giant or a Goldshire Knoll or whatever, that only matters in hand. The only things that externally reduce cost are things like Librams or Incanter's Flow that say, like, spells in your deck cost less. It changes the numbers.
Right. Let me rephrase. So there is a mech card that reduces your next mech by 1 mana. And it
You're
costs
talking about
1.
what the first half, right? When you
Right. So if I
played-
play
Yeah.
Frequency Oscillator, Battlecry, the next mech you play costs 1 less. It is a 1-drop. It then draws me a 2-cost mech. I play that 2-cost mech for 1 mana. Does it count as a 1 or does it count as a 2?
I can tell you fairly confidently, assuming it works like Quest Priest, it will not count if it's not actually it will not count if you are not paying that cost at the time you're playing it.
Yeah,
Okay.
so the first half cares about number in the top left corner that you spend mana on. The second number cares about number in the top left corner in your deck, which is usually without any kind of cost reduction. So yeah, in that case, you're not playing a 2-cost card, you're playing a 1-cost card. Base cost 2 doesn't matter. It's how much you're paying is what matters.
Yeah, like today, if I'm playing Quest Priest and my opponent has a Firewatch Post, which is also rotating, by the way, and they make my Thrive in the Shadows cost 3. If I play it, it will trigger the played 3 part of the quest, not the played 2 part of the quest.
Okay.
Yeah. So, don't know how much play it'll see, but I imagine that people will try.
Yeah.
And I got to make my tempo joke, so I am happy. Okay.
And I'm obviously sad that this is coming out after Quest Priest rotates, but that's obviously something they're not ever going to print when the Priest Quest was in Standard.
So, we'll wind down here with the legendaries. We got 3 of them. When I say wind down, we got a minute. Don't worry. There's, especially Tony. It'll take a little while. So, first we have Pozic Audio Engineer, 4 mana, 5/4, neutral. Battlecry, add 2 3/3 bots to your opponent's hand. Death Rattle, summon them for yourself. The bots are 3 mana 3/3 mechs with no text. It plops them in their hand. When he dies, it pulls any of those bots that are left onto your side of the board. If your opponent plays the bots, it doesn't steal them. It doesn't take them. They can play them and make his Death Rattle do nothing, or only summon 1 bot. But if the bots are still in hand, he yoinks them out and they're yours now.
Weird.
It is a weird card.
And it gets weirder because Minty Fresh tweeted today, what if my opponent shuffles the bots into their deck? Pozic will still summon them for you.
Yep.
So if you Finley and you put the bots into the deck and then Pozic dies, it will still yoink the bots out of the deck and play them for you.
Yeah. So it's an interesting card that if our opponent is playing 3 mana 3/3s, are we mad? Are we upset?
Mm-hmm.
But even though that's not really the price point you want to be at, we're still giving our opponent a choice as to what's best for them. It may not be the choices they want, but they do get to decide, would I rather clear a couple waves of minions, or would I rather play these 3/3s? And it's still just a 4 mana 5/4. Though obviously it's a 4 mana 5/4 that Death Rattle summon 2 3/3s, that's pretty good. That's where you want to be.
And it will burn cards occasionally.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like that's probably like in a use case like let's say we get a Mill Warlock, right? Which is interested in drawing a whole bunch of cards for both players. I could see it also running this to put those in to make the hand awkward so that when they do draw for the opponent somehow that they're also burning cards along the way.
I think it might be like sneakily decent just because you run this out, and if your opponent really wants to spend the mana to play those while you do other things, like that's fine. I think particularly because there's a lot of cheap spells that deal 3 damage. So, Frost Strike, 2 mana deal 3, and you get a Frost Rune card. There's a number of things that are like pretty cheap to remove a 3/3. So you almost might want them to play a 3/3 so you can cheaply remove it and push your 5.
Depends on when in the game you're playing this. Like we don't
Sure.
always play cards
Obviously, it is
on
best
curve,
on
right?
it is best on curve.
Yeah, like
It
this
is
is
for playing on curve.
this is a card that drops off considerably after you turn 4, right? Because like if you're giving your opponent 2 3/3s for 3 mana apiece, if you're top decking this late in the game, sure, I might not have had anything else to do anyway, so I'll play 2 3/3s. It's going to be very, very dependent on getting down on curve in order to have the effect, or burning cards, right? Like those are going to be the 2 use cases.
Would be really silly to Shadow Step.
Oh God, please let that
Oh.
rotate out of core.
Maybe found a use case for the weapon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Although this
I'm
doesn't
curious.
have combo.
No, it's a neutral. Of course, it doesn't have combo.
Mhm.
But I don't know. That's a lot of 3/3s. Probably too much work. Okay. We've got the 1 Amalgam Band. 7 mana 6/6.
I love these cards.
It's great. 7 mana 6/6 neutral minion type all. Battlecry, gain a random bonus effect for each minion type you've played this game. I have a list of the bonus effects here. Hold on. I have this.
So I think it is like Wind Fury, Taunt, Rush,
Taunt, Divine Shield, Stealth, Lifesteal, Wind Fury, Poisonous, Rush, Reborn.
Kind of like most of the things you would think of. You're really going to be looking for that Tiamat effect. And traditionally, I have enjoyed these minions. The 7 mana 6/6 value of some kind. Previously, we've gotten some that weren't great, right? That drawed minions based on particular keywords. Tiamat was probably the best one, and I think if this is consistent enough in the decks that run it as a Tiamat, it'll be pretty strong.
Yeah. The problem is you can't play it in the one deck that you really want to play it in, which is the deck that runs the Purator.
Oh, sure. You can order in
That's
the corner.
true. Though I will say that Leo said in the interview that he did with Aleko as well, he looks forward to seeing Menagerie decks. We're going to get some pretty direct support.
Yeah.
And Amalgam of the Deep is still in Standard, and that only counts for one type. It doesn't. You can't just play an Amalgam and then hit 8 effects. That's not how that works. But it will count for at least one type that you're missing, which is nice.
Yeah. And we have dual type minions now, which we haven't had in the past when we've tried to build Menagerie decks.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So like that will also help, to fill in the gaps of those kinds of, like when you have one of one type and one of another, you can still get both of those out. So that'll help a little bit to make this a little bit better. But yeah, I mean, if you're running Amalgam and you're running like a tribal deck, then it's still going to get like 2 at minimum, maybe 3 if you've played multiple Amalgams, because each Amalgam will count for a different tribe when you play it. So you could run Mistakes also. So that can kind of help to fill in. So, you'll probably get like 3 keywords off this, which is probably enough value if you're running a deck like that.
All right. One more card. Tony, King of Piracy. Of note, by the way, this is
Tony
the
Two Tusk.
first explicitly named BG's character to make it to a constructed card.
Mhm.
We've had references before. Pupbot and K9otron in particular. I don't know if it's the same dog, but they're both Robo-Dogs, and it wasn't BG's first. But this is Tony Two Tusk, and he's over here now, on the standard side. 5 mana 4/6 neutral legendary pirate. Both players' decks are swapped. Finale, draw a card. Okay, hold on. There is no battle cry on this card.
Right.
It is not a battle cry. It is an aura while it's in play. Both players' decks are swapped. And it is not you draw from the other deck because you can alter the deck that you have control over while you have Tony Two Tusk or Tony King of Piracy. Very important that you can change it because the Wombo combo that's been making the rounds on Twitter today, turn 7, you Tony, the decks are swapped while he's in play. You play the Fires of Zinajari. For those that don't remember what that is, I
sure.
don't blame you. 2 mana warrior epic spell, fire spell. It replaces your deck with minions that cost 5 or more and set their cost to 5.
I know
Then-
it's coming.
You let Tony die
Uh-huh.
somehow, probably provoke on your turn or whatever, and then you give the deck back, and then you play Steam Cleaner and you delete it.
Yep.
Now, keep in mind, that is 3 cards, 12 mana, no taunt, no healing, no defense whatsoever. However, that is also delete your deck by turn 8, which is earlier than I think most people want to have their decks deleted.
Mhm.
Outside of combo use cases, this is a bad card. You do not just slam this and pass. It is the same card in that case as Mischief Maker. Can anyone tell me what Mischief Maker does?
Yeah.
Oh, is that the one that swaps the top card of each deck?
Yes.
Very good, Steve.
Right. Yeah.
Do you have the stats?
So there are some great. I don't remember the stats, but there are some
Do you
great
know what
clips
set it's from?
of someone. I don't remember what set's from. I just know there are some clips of someone doing this, giving their opponent the call. The opponent would play the call,
That was
and then
Chump,
they would
yeah.
plate breaker.
Yeah. I
Yep.
think I remember this being a weird tech card for something. And I don't remember Mischief Maker, and I don't remember what it was. But I
Yeah.
think the important part while you're digging that up is that because this is an aura effect, Shaman still has a bunch of evolve effects. You will evolve and devolve into this occasionally. That's gonna be
Oh
when you're gonna see
God,
it.
no!
Especially
Oh,
if people are
no.
playing with Baroness Vash.
Right,
who-
which goes to 5s.
Which
yeah.
goes to 5s. Then you're gonna, especially in a 4-set meta, you're gonna hit this
Oh,
not
what a
infrequently
freaking
if you're playing Evolve Shaman. So beware of that.
So I don't think this will ever be like worth playing it, but it's notable that if you play this with the finale, you can just guaranteed take something that someone dredged. So a card that you know they wanted, you can steal. That's again, like I was saying, that's not why you do it.
Or you disrupt order in the court.
People are definitely going to try the fires thing, and I think against a combo deck, that is basically, hey, is there a piece left in your deck? Well, your combo's gone now, and so even if you don't have the Steam Cleaner follow up, you have killed their deck, and they can't get it back.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that people are going to try to make something happen with. They will. I
Wait,
don't know if. Oh no, I don't like that smile at all. No,
this,
you're putting something
I'm
into the
assuming this
universe,
doesn't
and I don't
work.
like
I'm
this.
assuming this doesn't work. So it's just no matter what, you swap back once this leaves.
Yes.
The
It
only
doesn't-
thing that makes the deck swap is the aura on this card. So as
Okay.
soon as the
So
aura turns off,
evolving
they
it,
swap. back.
right? So
As soon as
evolving it, they still
as
swap.
soon as
back.
the card text leaves the game, so if it's silenced, everything swaps back.
Okay. All right. Good.
So this is Ticketus.
Oh, yeah.
This is a Ticketus sort of thing. However, people are going to try this. It's going to lose more games than it wins. I feel really confident about that. However, if it is popular enough and control decks have enough of a toolkit to not die to aggro, the late game state of one player's deck suddenly disappears is not what I'd call fun and compelling. It's technically better than Elysiana, but not by a lot, because it's just whoever gets this going first, and that seems not great and potentially format warping. If anything, slower than turn 8 can't exist because your deck just vanishes. So I'm not worried about a power level here. I'm worried about a format warping effect because people want to live this dream, and if they keep trying it, everyone out there playing Blood Decay is going to hate this so much.
Oh yeah. No,
Yeah.
I'm.
But then maybe this is finally Disruptive Spellbreaker's time to shine.
That's a warrior card.
Yeah, because then it can get rid of the fires, and then they can't break your deck.
So you want a disruption warrior mirror is what you want.
It takes a warrior with a good card to beat a warrior with a bad card.
So the
Is
other
Disruptive
thing
Spellbreaker
I've
the good card?
seen-
In this scenario, I think it is.
The other thing I've seen is Jailer plus this. Because
That takes about 1 million years.
I
If
mean,
you-
yes.
If you got the Jailer down and you didn't die, you don't need to swap the decks. You already
Well,
won the game.
No, I think there's an argument, right? That it means that you get a little extra value and a little extra time because you got rid of your deck. So now you give them that empty deck. And then you have...
They can't kill Tony.
Right. They can't kill Tony unless they're priest. Right?
Or they
unless
have
they're...
Smothering Starfish.
Right. Yes. Which is notably still going to be around. But it is a thing that is another way that people will try and is more accessible, right? Fires is just warrior. But Jailer
Yeah, the most
into
accessible
Tony-
thing is play the 10 drop and then into the 5 mana 4/6. When you
Well,
can't have any taunts, it's
Look, we want it to be bad.
And draw it before that, because you won't be drawing it after you play the Jailer.
But like, Paladin can do it with Order in the Court, right? You Order in the Court and you've got Holy Mockery roll, right? So you got the sustain. Druid is often capable of doing silly things quickly, although without Guff, much less likely
You
to be
can go
too
up to
crazy.
11 though.
Yeah, I don't think that matters.
yeah.
You can't go up high enough to Jailer and this in the same turn.
So here's the upside of a card like this. I want to spin this. Here's the upside. The hope here is that this card is, and the decks that it's in, are truly terrible. And that they appear every so often, but... So if you're like me, and you were a proactive player, you love stuff like this. Because you throw the bone, and the ticketless players go catch it, and they're distracted, so they don't notice they lose every game they play with this. It satisfies the player that's looking for the Griefer card. But it's bad enough that it'll never hold you back. That's what you want. You want to make sure that the Griefer players get something, get acknowledged, but they're given bad cards they want to make good. You don't want to give them an Elucia. That's a good Griefer card. You don't want to do that, because then they play it, and you lose. You want to give them the bait. You got to make sure to give them the bait Griefer cards. I'm hopeful that that's what this is, that people are going to delete a deck and then die to a single Shadow Spirit or whatever, and maybe they'll keep trying it, and maybe they'll ruin a Blood Decay's day. Plenty of ways to do that, I suppose. But I'm hopeful that this is enough to satisfy the Griefer players while also being bad. Because if this is ever a real thing to do in the format that matters and is important, it will be miserable. So you got to make sure that that doesn't happen, which is mostly going to be dependent on defensive tools. Because
Yes.
it's all about the other cards in the deck that allow you to only play this as your win condition. That is the thing that really matters here. Because this is just a symptom of other defensive tools that allow you to beat aggro with the other 28 cards. Because this is never a thing against aggro, ever. Never, ever. You can't take off turn 7 and turn 8. That's not ever enough of a thing.
So
Like, I think if
other-
Paladin loses...
the other use case that you could, and this is only really viable because you have ETC now and you can throw it in ETC, is if there is some sort of a combo deck that relies on having specific cards, particularly legendaries, right? That, like, if you could think about like a phylactery warlock, right? And you really want to find the phylactery, and you have enough card draw, you have ways to tutor that you're gonna play anyway, that you can play this and then try to draw whatever that is out of their deck as a disruptive tool.
We play
Why wouldn't you
Theater
just
over this
play
every
Theater?
time, though. We play it every time.
I agree. Unless it's something that they are intentionally shuffling into their deck, and I don't know what that would be. Right.
I mean, again, like I was saying,
yeah.
anti-dredge, right?
Yeah.
You know, if there's something that was specifically getting dredged up, like that would be a good time to play it. Like thinking of if you do it out of ETC, like maybe you're a control warrior and you run this to sometimes steal one of their cards, and then you put the fires in the ETC. I think that's the way I would do it, because fires is so bad most of the time.
Yeah. I mean, there's just also just some people, like you said, who just want to play the lobotomizer, right?
Sure.
But like, this is for them. This is for the 3 people who really wanted to play the lobotomizer, who I'm usually the one to queue into because that's just the way that life works. And those people will just be happy. And what's important is that this will be possible, right? So they'll win like 20% of the time, which is enough to keep them going and then keep them down so everybody can just leapfrog over them on
Look,
the ladder.
don't get me wrong. I am going to try this a lot,
of
and I'm
course
going to
you are.
lose a lot of games trying to make it work. But I will also be the person who's infuriated as a Blood DK losing to this.
Oh, I'm gonna lose to this as a control priest, and I'm gonna put it on Twitter and say, look what this person did to me, and everyone will laugh. Yeah, because that's just the kind of thing that will inevitably happen to me playing the kinds of decks that I play.
But there's certain things, like if Paladin loses Wild Pyromancer, no shot. Or Equality. Like, Paladin is losing its tradable thing that they usually paired with Equality, and Equality is in core,
City
so
Tax, yeah.
who knows if it'll stay. And if Pyro with Holy Maki roll is going to be a great thing that we're going to want to do with some of the things that are going out. If Pyro doesn't stay, if Equality doesn't stay, Control Paladin does not exist.
Yeah, I mean, Warrior's losing Shield Shatter. So, good luck, Warrior.
And I've looked at the Warrior previous clears, like, wow, does that class lean on Brawl? Because the clears are not great.
Yeah. Can you name one right now that's not Shield Shatter or Brawl?
Snowed in, sort of.
I said clear.
Warpath. I
No,
think
it's
Warpath
current
is the
standard.
next.
Oh, that's currently in
no,
standard.
not current standard.
I
No,
mean,
I'm saying
provoke Onyxia would be the other one.
As Riot, I agree that that Warpath is great. Big fan of Warpath.
Yeah.
but I think that was the next best one.
Like Rancor is rotating.
I guess very specifically, there was the one that destroyed all your armor and cleared stuff, but that worked
Oh,
because of
Reckless
Odd
Flurry.
Warrior.
Reckless Flurry is pretty
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking historical, Lord Barov.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, that's true. Barov, I forgot about the minions. Barov is, I think, one of the best warrior clears.
But in standard, what is there?
There's a lot of control tools that are leaving. Like there were if you look at what Priest is losing, if you hate control Priest, I got great news for you. Because Little Zorella's going,
Well, all the Zorellas.
all the Zorellas, but certainly Little Zorella, which was the real big clear that was happening a lot of the time. And I mean, Light Bomb might not stay in core. I have to look at what the rest of them are, but there's a lot of removal that Priest is losing. Condemn's definitely going. That's not really played as much now, but it has been. There's a lot of control tools in general that are going to be rotating out.
Well, we're losing 3 real sets. Like as much as people meme on the Barons, there were good cards in Barons. We're losing 3 good sets.
Yeah.
But we should save all this talk for an eventual core set episode, which I'm sure we'll
look
do.
At you.
Yeah.
Yes.
And this is also very self-interested because we're at 2:20,
Yeah.
and
And-
this is
and-
going to be a
and-
doozy.
And
So-
there's also the threat of a cat pulling out a cord at any particular moment.
Well, it already happened.
Well, thank you everyone for bearing with us. We have many folks we'd like to thank. Check out our thanks section on the website at coinconcede.com. You can find our content info, show notes, Patreon information. Monetarily support our show at patreon.com/coinconcede. Join us every week live by following us on Twitch at twitch.coinconcede.com. Community chats in our Discord at discord.coinconcede.com. Run into our email at coinconcede@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at coinconcede. Like, share, and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/coinconcede. Like some CC swag, heading over to our shop at shop.coinconcede.com. Big thanks to our producers, Number Theory, Doshi K, Crush, Cap, Beef Squatch, David P, Faded Black, Wildu, Jeremy T, Battle Caps, Grumpy Monk, Krebmart, Mart, and the Burger Club. Gray Lego, Eddie Van Cleve, and Mad at Arms, thank you so much for subbing during the show. And Coin Concedes. Does anybody have them written? Anyone have any?
I mean,
you know?
I can go. I'm just gonna coin concede to Maureen because I was more or less out of commission for most of the week with this thing that happened, that I went through yesterday, and even before the actual prep, like I was pretty much a grump because they have you eat a low residue diet before you actually go on the prep, which is basically chicken noodle soup. It's basically all I ate for 2 days. And I was grumpy even before that and anxious and a ball of nerves because I'm a baby when it comes to any medical stuff. And she was a real trooper and just kind of getting me all the stuff that I needed and making sure that everything was, set up for me and taking care of all the things that I would have done during the week and being a real, she's the best. And I know I say it a lot, but I don't say it enough. So, love you, honey. I know she doesn't listen, but I hopefully she can feel me saying it. And, yeah, it's, I'm glad that I'm through this and she was a big part of helping this be as a lot less unpleasant than it could have been.
So
Thanks, Maureen.
I'm gonna
You're the
coin
best.
So I'm going to coin concede to Storm Rage because I had just like the seed of an idea that of a segment they should use in Blizzlet. Just the name, Monster of the Week. It just came to me and I was like, this is perfect. You guys should do this. And the very next episode, he put it in. So get to like make my little mark over there, which is kind of cool. And I didn't expect that. So coin concede to Storm Rage.
Nice. Quality podcast over there. All right, Coin Concedes.
It's the podcaster's podcast.
Yeah. It's the podcast you listen to for all the things that you shouldn't do if you're making a podcast, but it's fun for those of us that are already involved. Dano over in the Squelch podcast. Coin Concede to him. Good dude. World 8 made an Enraged Warrior list and refined it in our Discord, and then played it a lot, and then I played it some, and then the Vicious Syndicate, when we were looking through the data, Zach posted the refined list, and it was just World 8's card for card, which he got top 100 with. They just promising, look good in the data. Props to him. Really nice. Also, our Coin Concede Listener Series champion. Listen, win the championship, end up in the Data Reaper. It's just saying. Not sure how it happens, but it happened. Edelweiss, Coin Concede to you for chocolates, because you sent me some constellation chocolates that were really delightful and amazing. So thank you for that. And really, both my co-hosts, I have been somewhat preoccupied over the past month or so, and you two have been very stable and supportive, so I really appreciate that. This week in HS on Twitter, he had ChatGPT write a poem about me. The future is a weird place, but I linked it in the show notes if anyone wants to check out an ode to Ridiculous Hat. I'm not going to read it here. We've already gone too long. Cinder Ascendant for being a cool person. Cinder, thank you very much for talking to me. And there is a roguelike that I've been playing called Nitro Kid, which is Into the Breach Slay the Spire, made by card game nerds. There's a whole genre on Steam of I've beaten Slay the Spire, and now I want to make a card game for other people that have also beaten Slay the Spire. There are so many of them. Almost all of them are worse than Slay, and like they try really hard to make things complicated. And Nitro Kid makes a lot of the same choices where it's all about synergy chasing with the platonic ideal being like Watcher or Silent Nut decks. That's really where they want you to go. But the soundtrack is this amazing, like, it reminds me of Hotline Miami, this synthwave vibe soundtrack, and I've gotten totally lost in the game just because I've been vibing out. I missed my train stop today because I was listening to the soundtrack. So just want to throw it out there. Been a while since music has really swallowed me up like that, so props to the Nitro Kid soundtrack. Okay, that's going to do it. Oh gosh, good luck, Edelweiss. So keep calm and have a shorter episode next week, please. And if you see us on ladder, coin concede.
Coin concede.
Coin concede.
Maybe I should send you some chocolates
What?
Or some alcohol.
for the 6 hours of editing ahead of you.
Oh, it won't be that much.
What are we up to? 387? Is that what we are?
387.
Indeed.
Yes.
Wow.
Also, that is a much less big deal than why you got yours. So.
Yeah. Well, it's fine. Anyways, listeners, thank you so much for being here. We are gonna let you go because I have some pizza out there that I'm gonna go have. In case you're wondering, it sounds like you eat a lot of pizza. Yes, that's true. That's a true statement. I have pizza most Thursday nights, in fact. It's kind of a thing.
But you could be having corned beef.
Right. I didn't realize it was St. Patrick's Day until I take public transit. St. Patrick's Day? She did not want to be lifted up.
Just for Twitch. Oh no. But we compromised. We lifted the pillow, which is less bad for her.
She looks like she's tolerating it temporarily. And now she's asking you to put her down.
Yeah, she's like, put me the F down or else.
Yes.
Is that that was that?
So I didn't realize it was St. Patrick's Day, and I looked at my pre-sales when I got to the theater. I'm like, wow, kind of quiet tonight after 9 o'clock. Not really a lot of pre-sales. And then I look outside at the East Village when I go to let employees in, and there are dipshits in green shirts. And I'm like, oh no, I take public transit home. This is gonna be bad. So luckily, I was able to leave work a little early, and it was fine.
Yeah.
All right, but yes, thank you, stream. We'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.